Hello and welcome to episode 490 of the Awesome Comics Podcast, the place with a small press makes one hell of a big noise. My name is Vince Hunt, and joining me as always is the creator of the comic series Vanguard, Dan Butcher.
Hello.
And a man whose Amazon book wish list has grown in quite a way since the last episode. If you want to know why, check out the last episode. That man is Tony Esmond. How are you?
Hello. Good. I'm going to buy that book Dan recommended last week on Amazon.
Yeah.
We
know what we're getting for Secret Santa, don't we, Dan? That's what we know what we're getting for Secret Santa. Here in ACP Towers, it is November.
It's packed out.
So I mean, I respect people's beliefs and what they think all across the world. But Christmas doesn't start till December. So there's no
right.
Yeah. But I won't besmirch you if you want to put some Christmas chocolate in your house, but it's not going to last till Christmas, so don't lie to yourself.
I was watching Sunday Brunch today, and there's some bloke we're going on about fucking Christmas drinks. He said, "Come on, mate, it's Christmas." And the other dude went, "No, it ain't. It's November."
Yeah. Well, perhaps
surely you can find a spurious reason to go out for a drink other than Christmas in November.
Yeah. And the worst part of that is I admitted I watched Sunday Brunch, so apologies everyone.
Yeah. Well, perhaps we should have a podcast Christmas party and invite everyone involved in this week's podcast, like us and our lovely guests / family. What's that? We've got other people on the show? Why, yes, we do, because we talk to other people. It's not just
sometimes
us every week, and some people will put up with us. And we've got two of those people that will put up with us this week. We've got our old pal. We always call him like the fourth Beatle, but other insects are available. It's the one and only Tom Curry. Hello.
Hello. How are you doing?
You got quite the ponytail going, Tom, I noticed.
Thank you.
It's
great.
Yeah. It's serious, isn't it?
I'm a lover of the ponytail. I adopted it for a while.
Yeah. And it looks like quite a colourful sort of shirt you got on this week, Tom.
Yeah. For this audio medium, I've really dressed up for the occasion.
I know. That's what we always do. Yeah.
Not as much as the other guest on the show. Is that right?
I like the way you've got like a wheelie radiator. You wheel next to your seat as well.
It's freezing cold.
It's one of those liquid ones as well that sloshes a bit when you move it, I bet.
Yeah.
But one man who's never sloshed because he's always professional. He doesn't slosh at all, and he's always hot to trot and looking so sharp. No, seriously, listeners, he looks very smart today. It is the one and only host of the Mega City Book Club, our old pal, Eamonn Clarke. Welcome back, sir.
Hello, I'm wearing, as Tony described it, an ascot. And,
you got hunter wellies on, I know for a fact.
Just the wellies and the ascot and nothing else.
It's going to be one of those weeks. And Eamonn's been on the road because he popped a thought bubble this week.
Yeah.
And was drowning in comics and joy. And you're tired but feeling excited about comics after the trip, Eamonn?
Yeah, it is very exciting, Thought Bubble. I did the Saturday at Thought Bubble, and it was, I think it's the busiest I've ever seen it at Thought Bubble.
Amazing.
4 halls now, an explosion as ever of colour and of comics, creativity, small press stuff. As we talked about off air, getting quite zany, I think. There's an awful lot of that activity going on.
Yeah,
I think it's got to survive by going with the fashion almost, doesn't it? And I think, I guess that's kind of the popular DIY zany thing is what's popular at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
And if it's still going and growing, right? Like if it's still always put on a show every year, that's something to be said.
Yeah.
And, people were buying. The people I spoke to said they were selling comics. It was
awesome.
Going well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So obviously, if you some people may be listening to this as they're travelling back from Thought Bubble on the Monday.
Yeah.
So
we did that, didn't we? We stayed the Sunday night, didn't we?
No, we didn't. We didn't listen to ourselves on the way back.
No, we listened to each other.
Oh yeah. Just go on and on and on. No, but we did that because obviously it's quite a journey for a lot of people, but well worth it as well. So if you are a creator or just a visitor or whatever, no matter what you went there for, no matter how much you bought, we hope you had an amazing time. And I want to know if there's any books that we need to check out that are debut, because there's the Thought Bubble debut. It's infamous, isn't it? So, and which means that there's a raft of new books that we don't quite know about because we weren't there. So please let us know what we should be checking out or who we should be talking to.
It was nice we got tagged in some photographs. I got this after hearing about it on the ACP. I like that a lot.
That's cool.
That's
cool.
That's good. And we're going to be talking about a lot of comics this week, an awful lot. But why? Well, that's the because of the topic, which we'll get into. But if you want to read an awful lot of comics yourself, you can check out our lovely sponsor. Somehow this show has a sponsor, and they are still sponsoring us, and they are still awesome. They're
only getting bigger and bigger.
They are the wonderful Global Comics. It is the place to go if you like reading your comics digitally. And there's a huge library of titles available to read on there from thousands of indie creators, hundreds of publishers like Image, Boom, Tokyo Pop, TKO Studios, SourcePoint Press, Dynamite, Humanoid, Mad Cave Studios, Dark Horse Comics, DC Comics, and just so many more. I feel like if I read the whole list of publishers out, I'd probably run out of breath. Yeah, I'd be here for a long time. As well as an awful lot of web creators as well. They're on there, which is good to check out.
Last week's guest, Matthew, doing Steam.
Oh, yeah, cool.
Yes, good old Matthew. So,
he's a good guest, wasn't he?
But what else is on there at the moment, chaps?
Can I recommend the books of NBM, November Bravo Mike? There you go. Which is just, we haven't spoken about them for a while, but they sort of specialise, I think, a bit in foreign translations that are biographies of people, comics biographies. And they've got a series on there that it's weird to read them. They're kind of all crammed into the same posting. And then when you go to the posting, then they're separated out. Right. But they've got a series of books. They've got Mingus, the jazz guy, Pink Floyd, Prince, Audrey. It's quite eclectic.
Yeah.
Audrey Hepburn. But Volume 1 is Alfred Hitchcock's by Noel Simpson and Dominic Hay on art. Lovely, nice history of his early days from Leytonstone all the way to Hollywood. And an interesting focus on his Catholic background in there, which I didn't really know about Hitchcock. He's got this sort of inbuilt Catholic thing, which I suppose may translate to how he treated his actresses in some way or other. But it's interesting, and they do some nice biographical stuff. I really like that one this week. You go, Dan?
Nice.
Mine's keying into some of the books that I'm going to be reading about. It's the Garth Ennis collection. We've got Creepshow, Marjorie Finnegan, Temporal Criminal, which I've not read, Sarah, which I have and is absolutely fantastic, The Darkness, Ribbon Queen, and finally The Boys. More on that later. And there's a whole slew of other titles on there.
I think a couple of them are in verticals as well, aren't they? I think Marjorie Finnegan's a vertical now, isn't it? I think.
Yeah. I checked out The Ribbon Queen not too long ago, and that's a fucked up book.
That's like 8 issues.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Can also just check in there. Void Rivals is all up there as well.
Is it all on there?
Really?
Is it?
Nice. Yeah, Void Rivals there as well, which is something that Dan put me onto.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And that's a book that I need to catch up on. So
me too. I only read the first 3. I need to
catch up on it, Vince?
Well, I can
do that on Global Comics.
I can do that in Global Comics. Yes, the wonderful Global Comics, and on their app. Did you know, Tom, that not only can I check that out, but like I can follow creators, set reading status filters, and release notifications for books that I'm looking forward to checking out in the future.
Not notifications, Vince.
Notifications, yeah. Dan's probably got a few. How many is it this week, Dan?
5, 6,
47.
How many?
47.
That number's dropping. Is this dropping because you've stopped saying?
No, I cleared them all out. This is built up again over like a week.
Over a week? Wow.
Yeah.
It's because Dan likes reading comics. And
he gets excited.
Global Comics want to let you know when your favourite comic's coming out. So if you happen to be...
I think what they do recently is they give you like a little 5 issues you might like at the weekend. It comes up on a Saturday morning on my emails. That's a nice little thing. I like that. Yeah.
That one thing, like the emails seem to be pretty curated and stuff. It seems...
which is good.
It's good stuff. And also they've got great customer service.
Customers.
Customer service.
That's older customers.
I've had a cold this week, so I'm like,
crusty.
I feel like a customer. Yeah. But if you happen to be a creator yourself, you can publish your books on there for free. They offer loads of great tools for indie creators to help with publishing, marketing, and more. So check them out on Global Comics. That's comics.com. You can download the app now on the Apple App Store or Google Play and start reading digital comics like never before. And there's loads of free stuff. There's also a 7-day free trial. It's like a subscription service basically, but there's so much value for money that if you jump in, you won't jump back out again.
Yeah.
Unlike your gym membership
or your marriage.
Don't do it when I'm about to drink. Oh dear. But anyway, from all of those comics to an awful lot of other comics, why have we got 2 guests? Why have the Power Rangers reunited in such a way? Because it's time to catch up on our reading challenge. Last time Eamonn was on the show, that was when we set the reading challenge, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. We were talking about collecting and what to do with our collections, weren't we?
You set
us a reading challenge, or you set us homework for me and Tom.
Yes. Yeah. Tom, you did, I think, the reading challenge. Were you there for the last one?
I do every time you guys put one on. I always try to do one as well.
Yeah.
And
you have gone above and beyond this time, Tom.
Yeah.
I know we'll get to it in a second.
I mean, some would say he lost his fucking mind.
Yeah. I want to keep my powder dry until I'm called on by the great leader. To speak my piece. I'm gonna keep
L. Ron Hubbard.
He's my Ron Hubbard. Put it that way.
Yeah. What? But yes, we set a reading challenge for those. If this is your first episode, wow, you've got so many other episodes to listen to, and it's an abundance of joy. But this particular week, we set ourselves a reading challenge a few months ago. We like to, since we started doing this, it's just been immensely fun, sort of little experiment, and something that, I mean, we call it a challenge because we set a challenge for the show, so we're always going to have a catch-up for this. And basically we pick either a title or a genre or, any kind of comic, could it be a series or a moment in time that has just passed us by, or we haven't got all those
I did war comics, didn't I? Do you remember?
On the first one, yeah. Those things that we always meant to get around to reading, or just, everyone was talking about, but we haven't read them yet. The reading challenge is a perfect time to sort of do that. And it's immense fun, and you do read an awful. I mean, for us, because we're reading for this show, there's an awful lot of comics that have been read between the 5 of us.
But me, yeah.
I almost said 4, but that's because I've taken the view off the Zoom, so I can't see myself. I feel like a ghost. But yes, so we all had like different books, and we set Tom a challenge. He set himself a challenge as well and jumped in on it. So we're all reuniting today to update on that reading challenge. Now, that's not to... I mean, this could have been a case of we set a reading challenge, and by the time we got to this episode, we could have failed it. We could have not had a chance to... if you don't get around to reading it, that's totally fine.
Loser.
But we all read what we set out to read.
I wish I had, frankly.
Yeah.
To be fair, I pulled the ripcord kind of a fair way through on mine because I was like, I've seen and had enough of this.
Not a fair way through. After 3 volumes.
3 volumes.
Yeah.
No, three the omnibus volumes.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
so they're like 150 pages each.
Yeah. And you don't have to, like, for something like this, and certainly on this show, if you say you're going to read every issue of Action Comics from issue 1, and you only get...
That's a good idea.
You'd be there. It's no crime to say, I did 10. Do you know what I mean? There's no limit as long as you experience the books, and sometimes it could just be a graphic novel, or anything like that. So, do we announce? I mean, some people who have listened to the show might know what we're going to talk about. Do we announce them now, or should we announce them one by one as we?
Let's
talk
do one
about
by one, I reckon.
Okay.
Yeah, one by one.
Yeah. So
keep the expectation up.
Yeah. So how should we do this, Jen? We're doing this on the fly. We're deciding
Guess
this
first.
on the fly. Do we start with one guest and end with the other guest?
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
Ooh. Very rare the guest gets a sandwich. Normally we're
We're the jam in your sandwich.
Yeah.
Well,
do any of you
I'm the
guys want to
pickle.
go
I'll
first?
be the pickle.
Eamon, would you like to go first, or shall I go first?
Sure, okay. We'll build up to Tom's magnum opus.
Tom's insanity.
So, Eamon,
Okay, so
talk us through it. What did you set yourself the challenge of reading?
I set myself the challenge of reading Black Hole by Charles Burns, originally published as a 12-issue series by Kitchen Sink Press and Fantagraphix, Tony, I think.
I think you're right, man. Sounds about right. Yeah, I was reading it in singles, so I massively lost my mind or track of what was going on between issues.
Well, because those 12 issues came out over about 10 years. I think.
Yeah, they did, yeah.
And then they were in 2005. They collected in hardback. And when I was on last time, I described the book as one of those books that you always see on best of lists, like the top 50 graphic novels that you should read. And I'll also suggest it probably, I was going to test this in Harrogate yesterday and I forgot to, but it's probably in your Waterstones in the graphic novel section. It's one of the books that you're probably going to find.
Yeah.
So Black Hole, for anybody who doesn't know, this is a black and white independent comic by Charles Burns. It describes it's like mid-1970s Seattle, bunch of teenagers. They are a bunch of American teenagers, so obviously they're interested in is sex and drugs. And there is a weird sexually transmitted disease going around. And as Tony probably remembers, the symptoms of the sexually transmitted disease are mutations, strange bodily mutations. So it's a book about adolescence. It's a book about transformation. It's a book about the fear, I suppose, of what our behaviours might lead to. It's a strange book. It's a book that was actually, this is unusual for me because I've always been handing comic books to my kids. This was one that my kids handed to me, and I'd never actually read it. So I thought for this, I would get round.
Yeah.
I was thinking about underground comics and what it is about underground comics that's different. And Tony might correct me on this, but I reckon one of the things you find in underground comics is people sweating a lot.
And in underground comics creators.
Yes. I know what you mean, yeah.
And the other
Crumb's
thing about...
always sweating, isn't he? Crumb is always sweating.
Crumb's always sweating, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
And then the other thing about them, and again, unlike sort of mainstream superhero comics, say, is a sense of uneasiness. That underground comics have the power to disturb us. And that's what I found from this book. It's that it's quite disturbing. It's very weird. The stuff that the various characters, because we follow various characters, the story jumps around a bit until we eventually realise there's something been going on throughout the whole thing. Although in a way, that's not what the book is about. But anyway, I found it.
Would you say there's a lack of safety? Would you say there's a lack of safety with sort of this sort of storytelling in underground comics?
Yes, I think that's right.
It lacks a sort of narrative cohesion as well, purposely, in a way.
Yeah.
He's
You're
not strictly
going to
drawn
get
by
an
anything like
ending
that.
where the villain gets punched.
Yeah.
And, Vince is right. In a lot of the superhero comics that we grew up reading, there is a sort of sense of safety that at the end of the day, the Joker's going to be back in Arkham and things are going to be all right for a while until the next issue.
Yeah.
Whereas in underground comics, there are no safety rails. Other things can happen. Black Hole by Charles Burns, beautiful black and white art. I would say that I think I prefer his black and white work to his colour work that he's been doing more recently. There are a lot of people sweating. There's a lot of people having sex and drugs. There's a lot of very weird mutations. And it made me feel positively queasy in places.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It falls into that sort of disturbing body horror, just a bit disgusting sometimes, unsettling kind of horror story for me.
I mean, for people that haven't read sort of Charles Burns, and I'm one of them, but if you're in some ways knowledgeable of comics in the medium, you know the name, and certainly if you walked into a bookshop, you've seen books like this at the forefront. They're normally like critically applauded and stuff. For an easy comparison, is Charles Burns kind of like a David Lynch of comics? Do you know what I mean?
Way.
Kind of like hugely popular because of his work being critically acclaimed and stuff, but it's not what the normal's doing.
I would say in a way, but Burns is massively popular in France. In fact, up until recently, he released stuff just in French.
Wow.
Up until the recent final cut that's been out in France for 3 years. It's only recently it got collected and put out here. So yeah, I think he is. I think there's always that comparison with him and Lynch. What do you think, Eamonn?
Well, if you imagine the horror of sexually transmitted disease, if you imagine the sexually transmitted horror of It Follows, the movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
But had it as a Cronenberg body horror and then had it directed by David Lynch, I think you're right, bang on, Vince.
Fucking hell.
Yeah.
What a description that is.
Yeah.
And you get Sleepless in Seattle thinking about it. Because,
I love what she's having.
All the movie genres there I've done. Yeah, it is like that. That's the sort of vibe.
Okay, so here's the big question. Did it deliver?
Yes.
Did you enjoy it?
Well, I'll give you a comparison.
Okay.
because I read this and I really enjoyed it. I did devour it in the sort of 12-issue format. So I read an issue.
Okay, that was going to be one of my questions. Did you? Yeah.
I then, because I listened to another podcast called Never Right.
Never listened to anything.
Oh yeah.
Where they talked about Charles Burns' most recent work, Final Cut, which is in colour. And as a result, I jumped on that and I read it quickly before I went off the thought bubble. So I had some preparation for that. Now, I read it too quickly in one sitting, and I might need to go back and give it another go. But Final Cut didn't deliver for me. Black Hole, I still think, is the one that's got a punch, the one that's got an impact, the one that makes you feel weird and uneasy and thoughtful afterwards. Whereas Final Cut, I closed the book at the end and I was like, oh, okay, meh.
You know, do you think it was because you gave it that time to percolate?
Possibly, and I think that's a good point, Tom. You know, that it might have been that I read Black Hole in the format that in the 12-issue format, one issue a night, as it were.
Yeah.
It's worth remembering that Final Cut was 3 books originally.
Was it?
Yeah, so it's split into 3 when it was originally released in France, which had a different impact on me when I found that out. And if you look at the spine, and you can see where it's almost like delineated in the
but
paper.
in the book, is it just put together as one thing? So
in the American release, yeah.
Wow. Right, okay. So there's not even the concept of a break in between.
Not really. Not really. Yeah.
I mean, that massively changes the reading experience, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I read Black Hole. I think Black Hole is much better. I think we chatted about this same, didn't we? I think the black and white of Black Hole works so well.
Yeah.
For me, I read it as it came out, and it was always like, "Oh, this is out. I'll buy this." And I'd read it, and because it took so long to get the next issue out, I'd completely forgotten what happened in the previous issue. Right. And it kind of goes round and round a bit. I found Black Hole. It almost repeats itself a little bit, but because it's so strange, I'm not looking for that through line of Commissioner Gordon I'm not looking for that sort of narrative through line. I'm just looking for the quality of Burns's work. And I think when I read Final Cut, it delivers this linear storyline. Although it is strange, it delivers this storyline that I perhaps wasn't ready for. I think it's a bit like when I think the expectation of Final Cut is comparison to the expectation we had for Monsters from Barry Windsor Smith. It had built up a lot to me, really. And
I mean, Final Cut is sort of, it's the 70s again. It's Seattle. There's a bunch of teenagers or young adults who are making a cheap science fiction film. So it's the same sort of milieu, but it just didn't work for me. Whereas
slightly cold
Black Hole,
me. Yeah,
I can recommend it. Yeah, it's a solid thumbs up. All the fuss about Black Hole, it is actually worth reading.
Yeah.
And when was Final Cut released?
This year.
This year. Yeah.
Okay, so
that's a strange thing. Yeah. So your kids passed this on. What did they think you'd enjoy it, or there was kind of just wanted to see your kind of read on it?
So it was given to me by my daughter Jenny. She thought I would enjoy it. She thought it was something that I probably would have read already, but I hadn't, and she was surprised when she learned that I hadn't. Yeah, she thought I would enjoy it. She knew I was interested. Well, she knows I'm interested in all sorts of strange comics, and they do like to push me a little bit with my reading. So yeah. And it's nice because it was, people who listen to my podcast know that when they were teens, I kept giving them Halo Jones and V for Vendetta and things like that. So they're repaying the favour.
It's like my son. It's like Clockwork Orange. I held his eyelids open and made him comics.
Quite right.
The old drops in his eyes.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, that was quite an epic tome to start off with, I think. So, I tell you what, we've got there's a couple of manga on this list, so we're going to split them up.
Okay.
Tony, you're going to go first.
Okay. So mine's a manga. I chose this because it's a blind spot in my manga reading, really. I'm a fan of Gekiga, which is the more sort of adult-orientated stuff, and I'm a fan of the period that this came out in for manga. So this is Golgo 13, created by Takeo Saito. I'll explain the studio business he has because he doesn't do everything. And it appeared in October 1968 in Big Comic magazine, which is the month before I was born. And it's the story of a hitman. It's Oh, I don't know if you can guess. I'll ask you, Tom. If you had to guess, where would this be in the most popular manga of all time? Can you guess?
I mean, so there's obviously like the big 1-2 of like One Piece and Dragon Ball Z.
Funny enough, the second most big, according to Wikipedia, which is obviously always right.
Yeah.
Doraemon is the second biggest one.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a children's book. Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Now, third.
I mean, well, go on.
Third is Golgo 13, which is interesting.
Really?
Number of so One Piece first, Doraemon second. One Piece has sold 516 million copies.
Right, let's just have a pause there to just everyone to fucking soak that in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's still going.
When did One Piece start?
97.
That's
fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Madness. Doraemon has had, so that had 110 volumes. Doraemon has had 45 volumes and has sold 300 million, tying with it. And actually, you could argue that Golgo 13 is more popular. Golgo 13 has had 214 volumes, right?
Hell.
And has sold 300 million and has been going from 1968 and still going. That's pretty impressive.
That is impressive.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it's really impressive.
Absolutely incredible.
It's got its own comic out there as well.
I'm assuming you started with issue 1.
Well, no, because this is why I regret choosing this. Because, we like to recommend these things. So people go, oh, I'll try and get hold of this. I'll try and get hold of this. Mm-hmm. I think I was literally lucky to get volume 8 on Amazon when there was like obviously a couple spare. There's been 13 volumes released, the recent set of volumes released in the UK. And I can't find one that's anything less than 50 quid. I think volume 1, did I send it to you earlier? Was it like 280 quid or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. It's gone. It is with manga back issues. Seemingly, there's a couple of books I'd love to read, but I can't find volume 1 for love nor money.
It seems weird that they're like sold millions and millions of copies of this, and it's like, well, I want a copy. It's out of print. We can't get hold of it.
Yeah.
You're fucking mad.
I mean, I tell you what, the back issue market for that, do you know what I mean? Even those books and stuff, it must be crazy compared to, the comic marks that we say, that
this one's buying this variant because it's gone up by £10.
I can only imagine that's on a perennial reprint in overseas.
Yeah.
It's just that we're not.
Yeah, we're just not seeing it, I guess. I mean, it's fairly ubiquitous. It's had a number of anime series, and it's had 2 movies. I watched the first one, Golgo 13, which is available on Blu-ray now.
I've seen the first film. It was in the second or third wave of like the UK manga video releases.
Yeah,
and it was fucking strong.
Yeah, it's very adult. So it falls into that Gekiga thing, which is good really when you think it's the most popular Gekiga book really ever, and it's got that sequential storytelling. Tezuka did this. We've talked about Tezuka, Tom, haven't we? So it's almost like there's a page that's got lots of panels on it. Mm-hmm. Less sort of flamboyant and showy than a lot of more recent. If you take some of the more recent manga, it's almost like some pages just have a single image on them, don't they? You can see that this doesn't. This is very much in Tezuka's style. Mm-hmm. A lot of panels per page, and then what he does, Saito uses photographs, draws over photographs into a lot of the scenery and the cityscapes and the countryside and stuff like that, but beautifully done. I mean, look at that. I mean, that's like just blocks and blocks of city blocks.
Gives it such a kind of real world feel.
Yeah, very much so.
Absolutely.
But what he does is Golgo 13 is this sort of enigmatic hitman, and he's got a very heavy design to him, really interesting, that makes him very easy to draw, I'm guessing. So he's got a sort of very low hairline. Do you know? He reminds me a bit of Goodfellas. Do you know the guy, the shoe shine guy?
Yeah.
He's almost like his hair starts just an inch above his eyebrows. he looks like that.
Or Billy Bats.
Yeah, and he's got like big eyebrows as well. He almost looks like the Japanese version of that. And he's this sort of unbeatable hitman, which is really weird when you think that the first live action movie was completely filmed in Tehran. To be honest, I don't really know what that is. It's just very strange. I think they use sort of sexy ladies in it. It's very strange. But so this one I got, it's each of these volumes that came out from Viz have got 2 stories in them. This one is called Volume 8 Gravestone in Sicily. But there's actually 2 stories in there. The other one is called The Psychic. And it's probably my favorite of the 2. This is about, so Golgo 13 has never failed. He's never failed in his mission to kill someone, and he gets hired to kill this Russian person who is the grandnephew or something like that of Brezhnev. So a lot of the people they're referencing are people who were about in the 70s and 80s, like genuine people. And he gets hired to kill him. So he goes to shoot him. And as he's shooting him, this woman looks back at him down the barrel of the sights. He's, the long distance sights he's using, and he keeps missing. And he goes to them and he says, "Look, I've never failed in a mission." And it turns out she's psychic, and she's getting into people's heads and stopping. Like, she's giving people heart attacks. She's making cars crash off the road. So of course he can't he can't fail. So he goes to see a bloke who's a master of, get this, who's a master of yoga, right? And he says, "I will pay you lots of money if you teach me to be a master of yoga in a week." And the dude goes, what are you talking about? So he's got to find a way to overcome and still keep his record of sort of the perfect hitman. But I got onto it because I'm a massive fan of books like Sanctuary. I'm a massive fan of Crime Freeman, that sort of crime, Riichi Ikigami kind of stuff, that sort of crime, dirty crime area. And I thought this fell into it, but this is much more Tezuka. It's like adult Tezuka, this. Okay. Very much more.
Honestly, I'll check this out. This sounds great. This sounds really good.
You can get it on the Viz app.
Okay, great.
He's sort of like a lone, he's like a James Bond kind of figure, going around the world, sleeping with women, driving fast cars.
There's a lot of that going on. Yeah, especially in the movies and the cartoons, the anime. There's a lot of like topless women, that sort of thing going on.
I haven't read it in a while, which so my comparison with off, it's almost a bit like Parker.
Yeah. A little bit like that. You like him, but he is a bad geek. It's like that in it. He's so distinctive. He's so sort of stony faced. Nothing affects his opinions about anything. And I hope they do it. I hope Viz pull their finger out and stick him out. As we said, as Tom quoted correctly, the third most popular manga in the world, the most popular adult manga. You think they could put it out in better volumes, but if you go to the Viz website, you can sign up for free. And it allows you to read stuff on there for free.
Oh, that's all right.
Just to say that's different from the Shonen Jump app.
Yes,
which is also run by Viz, but it's not. They're two separate things.
Yeah. This isn't on the Shonen Jump app.
No, it's no. Yeah.
It's very different from that crowd, Tom. If you see what I mean.
Oh yeah.
You've got quite a wide reading of history of manga, but
I naturally, just from my own background, like lean more towards the Shonen Jump side of things.
Yeah.
Mainly because that app is incredibly cheap and you get a lot for your money on that one. And so I read a lot of that stuff anyway. Yeah. But I have been since we've done a bit more talking about Tezuka stuff and that, reading the more adult side of manga.
Yeah.
Is more of something I've been looking to do anyway. So that's a great jumping off point. Frankly.
Yeah, I know we talked about Shigeru Mizuki as well. And it's almost like there's a certain period in Japanese manga from the 60s. Sort of about a decade post-war through to the early 80s that has this real nasty underground feel to it. A lot of the painted covers are so pulpy beautiful, and it falls into that for me.
How did you find jumping in at volume 8?
Standalone stories. I think the thing is with this is they didn't. I was reading they don't. There's essays in the back of this as well, which I always like. And they were saying in there it's they don't print them chronologically. They just picked good stories, so I guess you can just jump in anywhere.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
Basically, so you can find whatever was available and just say, "Okay, I'm gonna."
Yeah, there's a great essay in this quoting that this is the sort of early precursor, the early parents arguing on the internet about things, because there was some big argument about something that happened in the story, and loads of people writing, "He wouldn't do that," all this sort of thing.
Yeah,
one of those type of things. Yeah.
The fact that you got a fan base that gives a shit to do that is doing right.
I think that's right, man. I think we talked about this about a year ago, didn't we? About if people care enough about the character, Stan Lee said that, didn't he? He said, I think Roy Thomas said to him, "What we're going to do about these people writing in?" He says, "Just remember they care."
Yeah.
Firstly,
but I understand that and agree with that. But devil's advocate, what about the modern books? Exactly the same things happening with the modern books. Does that, with what you said there, Dan? You must be doing something right.
Yeah, there's like everything it can be taken to excess. I mean,
there's nuances to it.
If you like, Golgo 13 uses like a different gun. They're like, oh, he would never use a gun like that because of X, Y, Z. And if you've got Golgo 13, like, oh, he's going to get his like fingernails done. You're like, whoa, hold on, that's completely. Not, do you know what I mean? Like, or Golgo 13 gives up assassination and does like
he goes to an internet cafe for a book.
He'd never do that.
Again, playing devil's advocate, Master Kung Fu did that. One of Tony's favorite issues.
What he didn't do,
he gives up, like that. One of your favorite issues where he's walking away, right? Where he gives up the lifestyle.
Yeah, the last issue where he walks away. Yeah, beautiful issue, man. But the thing about him is he always was fighting against.
Yeah, no, fair.
The violence, it's always a thing. He was always forced into violence, which is I think that's why I liked him so much. He's a pacifist at his heart, and that final issue made me happy because he was walking away and we knew he'd be happy. And then they fucking brought him back and gave him fucking stupid rings and shit like that.
Essentially, there's levels to. There's always levels and shades of grey to fandom. There always is. Do you know what I mean? But we should never lose sight of the ground we're standing on, because some people are fucking in the air. Someone just absolutely losing their minds about the stupid.
But we'd love
shit.
the numbers, V. We'd love the 300 million, wouldn't we?
300 million copies in circulation.
You can argue about my character, Atomic.
My one was a paltry. My one was a paltry 60 million compared to that. Oh dear.
Cool.
But
that's
we'll
my
get
one.
to that. Okay.
So look, find it if you can. The way I recommend finding it is find it on the Viz app. I think it's going to be the best way to do it.
Great.
Nice.
Yeah. Good. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dan Butcher, you went down the route of jumping into some omnibuses, didn't you?
Yeah.
What I like about this, we've all got different sort of experiences that we're different kind of reading challenges. I like this.
Well, there's the boys, Darrick Robertson and Garth Ennis. I had like the first trade, which is like things like they used to be like 3 or 4 issues. So they've got all the omnibuses on Global. So I was doing an omnibus a week, and I got up to 3 of 6, which was 72 issues.
Had you read that? So you hadn't read the series really before?
I'd only read like the first 5 issues of it.
And had you watched the TV series?
Yeah, I thought the first series of the boys is really good, and it's kind of for me got worse and worse as it's gone along.
I've stopped watching it, but
I gave up about halfway through the recent season. I keep meaning to go back to it, but I haven't. Yeah,
it's for me the first season, like a lot of TV shows, absolutely stand out.
Yeah,
they're hitting all the right notes. They kind of sharpened up what was in the comic, and then they just kind of. It seems like the creators or the showrunners think it's more about the success is more about that they've brought to the table and not what the property.
Yeah, the accent still gets me down.
Yeah, the accent.
Yeah,
I can kind of give it a pass now because I'm kind of like, this is what he sounds like.
You become numb to it.
It's when his mum turned up. Do you see the one where his mum turns up? You're like, that is the worst accent I've ever heard in my life.
I love Carl Urban, but he's also not Johnny Cage. Anyway, but I'm interested in this because this is a series that like I've got fond recollections of. At a time where I was rarely, I was hardly getting any comics, college and all that. I had a couple of ones that I was just getting every month, and The Boys was one I saw through its entire run. But it's been a while. It's almost like I had that experience, and I haven't gone back to read it. If you know what I mean, I enjoyed it. It lingers with me in so many ways. But I'm interested to see, like, especially from a modern viewpoint, and like reading it now, Dan, after all the comics we've read. How did you find?
Well, it's weird. I had to track back and I looked at the date this was publishing because there's certain stuff that comes up in the story, and I was like, "Fucking hell, that's not great." I mean, I was like, "Yeah, we all know The Boys. I'm sure everyone listening to knows The Boys." Yeah. There's one part of the story where Tech Knight. Have you guys read The Boys?
Yeah,
yeah.
So Tech Knight is got a brain tumor, and he's kind of acting up, and he's basically seeing everything as like a sexual kind of thing to get on. And the boys,
like you do.
Yeah, I've got no tumor there. But, so the boys are investigating like why this guy died, and it goes around to the fact that his Robin, called Swingwing, they tried to push him as a gay icon, and so they're trying to investigate, like, say they think something to do with the gay scene, and then from then on, everything about mentioning like homosexuality is done with like such a hatred. The language is just like, oh, the queers, the faggots, and this, and like they don't want to go into a gay bar because they think wee little Huey's like, oh, I don't want to go in here, like there's gays in here. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, this came out in 2006. I think that's like about 15-20 issues into the run, but I was really kind of, maybe my sensibilities changed, and when I've read this before,
it's interesting. Yeah.
I was just like, it just straight over my head, didn't even clock it. But now I was like, oh man, that's.
But it's massive satire, isn't he? Just playing on what people are like.
Yeah, I would have given it a pass because say you had a character that said, "Oh, he's a massive homophobe." That's the thing, and then at the end of the story, he's realizing I'm a fucking bigot, and he
yeah,
it around.
like a redemptive arc.
No, don't happen.
Or sometimes if they don't realize, then they end up getting killed. Or something like that, don't they?
Not in this. There's all the way through. Like, if they're a gay character, or like that they got rid of him because he was a gay superhero, or it's always in a derogatory sense.
I see. I can't. Like I say, it was a long time since I read it, so I'm intrigued to sort of.
I was kind of like,
this.
It's one of the first things that kind of clocked me when I was like, once I started seeing it, I was like, oh fucking hell, okay, this is what this is about.
Oh, once you notice something, isn't it? It's
I was like, okay.
You don't stop noticing.
Also, once something annoys you, I find.
Yes.
You know, sometimes you can be. You know, the mood you're in that day can
sometimes with a character. Once you've turned your back to a character because of something they've done, it can be quite difficult to come around to.
But I would have thought, like, say the Vought, which is the evil corporation, like perhaps they're like that. But it was like literally everyone in the book was just had no time for homosexuality and homosexuals. It was just like they're really off and making derogatory comments. But anyway, let's move on from that. I didn't like the Darrick Robertson's art. Like, it improves obviously because it went on for a big old run. This when he first starts, the character models are a bit weird. Like one panel, Billy Butcher, his head would be like as wide as a shovel, and then the next panel it'd be like a trowel. It jumps all over the place, and I was like, okay, but like when it hits like say like 20s onwards, he kind of gets into the rhythm of it. The computer coloring, the coloring methods they've done, his work is like really quite heavy on blacks in some scenes, especially when he does backgrounds. He really goes to town, and I feel like the colorist they got in with him sometimes kind of like the colors are too heavy and everything is fighting for your attention. So you have a character in the foreground and the background's like, it's all kind of.
Was he the artist for all of it? Because I remember he had breaks.
No, he didn't do the minis, did he?
No, I didn't do the minis.
He also didn't do all of the art, I don't think.
There's a couple where it jumps out. There's one where they've got the love sausage guy, the Russian.
The Russian with the massive cock.
Massive knob.
That made my son laugh out loud.
There's a splash panel of him jumping through a roof, and it's Darrick Robbins, great. And then the other artist takes over from the splash page onwards, which is like, that was an odd choice, but I was like, okay, it's fine. There's none of the art that kind of really brought me out of it. All the style was relatively similar. How do you guys feel about using likenesses of people and celebrities?
Mostly, it takes me out of it. We've just had, what were we talking about recently? But for example, on Red Coat, it's clearly that dude from Sons of Anarchy, isn't it? Charlie Hunnam.
Yeah. Charlie Hunnam.
And I'm kind of used to it now.
Okay.
It depends, but mostly I'm like, oh, yeah. That's,
I mean, for me, for the most point, like Tony, it takes me out of it. I think, and unless that character's supposed to be that person that they're supposed to be, that's a different kettle of fish. But
because obviously we had Simon Pegg with playing Huey.
I think that was on purpose, though, wasn't it? I think kind of he got his permission. I was reading an issue of Flash last year, and the artist on that had drawn. Who's the bloke who plays Captain America in the movies?
Chris Evans.
Chris Evans. He'd drawn Chris Evans as the Flash, and I'm like, well, that's Captain America.
Yeah.
It's a bit weird. So I know what you mean, man. Yeah.
Because obviously you get the Huey Starlight romance going on, and then there's panels where it's just like there's Simon Pegg laying naked with a comic lady there. It's just. It's a bit weird. Like there's a couple of times it like took me out of it. Like they're laying in the field naked. It's like they've drawn Simon Pegg laying naked with some superheroes. That was an odd one. I've got to say, generally, I liked it. I got a bit tired of the whole here's a superhero, they're a degenerate. They're like the worst of humanity.
It was one of the things in this series that when the arc came around that's about the young team that aren't a bunch of assholes. That Wee Huey meets a group of people that are actually nice. They're just the young team. It's a refreshing change because I'm like you. It's just the same like, oh right, all the superheroes are sexual degenerates. Do you know what I mean? Usually it's like it's drugs,
psychopathic.
That's part of it, isn't that power dynamic thing? Yeah. I have to say, mate, if you can stay with it, go all the way to you read Butcher Baker,
the
mini series. Has anyone read that?
Yeah.
One about Goose Green.
Yeah, it's been like Vince has been a long time though.
Yeah, that's my favourite of the series.
Okay, here we go.
It's much more sensitively told, and it involves Garth talking about war again, and he kind of changes gears a little bit in that.
And
that's
when the end of the series broke my heart. The end of the series broke my heart. Absolutely.
I read it in issues, so maybe I'm not feeling that I constant punch in the face with dicks.
It was like a lot of it kind of like, oh god. When Garth turns it on, because he's written some of my favorite books.
Yeah,
me too, man.
Yeah. I said turns on. Yeah,
that's one thing that's quite important to say. I think just an overall statement to everyone out there. Just because you've got a favorite artist and a favorite writer, that doesn't mean that you're going to love everything that they do. No. And nor do the writers expect you to. Yeah.
Crossed, I just haven't got time for it. Yeah. I've read some of it, and it's like the same for me, man.
But also at the same time, that doesn't mean you just got shit all over that particular creative person just because they've done something you don't like.
And there's so many
friends of the pod.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you've just had him on, Eamonn. That was a great episode, dude.
Talking about the Sarge.
So good, man.
Is he best when he has got his stories got some grounding in reality? Put him with a real war character, whatever theatre of war it is, World War II, Sarah on the Russian, the Eastern Front, even the Punisher in Vietnam.
Yeah. I love Garth Ennis's sort of like sense of humour and stuff, but the series and the comics that have really sort of hit notes with me are his deadly serious stuff, like some of that Punisher Max or Sarah or like the war stuff. Yeah. Where there's a joke in there occasionally because it's the black humor of like whatever it's gallows humor sometimes.
Yeah.
But the overall feeling of it is usually fucking hell, this is grim.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's there's no sugarcoating it. Whereas sometimes, and he stepped into fantasy comedy and all of this kind of stuff, and he's got a hell of a sense.
Yeah.
And Preacher's full of satire and
Preacher's the one. I think Preacher might be my favourite work he did. I think maybe the Hellblazers he did as well. I think.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There's one thing I noticed about they go out for a St. Patrick's Day. How many series is?
They always do.
They always celebrate St. Patrick's Day.
They did that in Hitman. John McCrane and him did it in Hitman, didn't they?
I think they do it in Punisher. Punisher one. Obviously doing this.
John McCrane draws the sex one, doesn't he? What's the one where they all go off to an island have sex?
Herogasm.
I think he does that, doesn't he? Yeah.
Yeah. He's got some. That's another fucking.
He draws it. I don't mean he does it.
Yeah. No. So obviously the series breaks down superheroes, and I think like Amazon picked it up for TV, and it was hitting just at the right time where kind of the fatigue that people were getting with the MCU. Yeah. This was scratching that itch of like, we can do something else with superheroes. And,
a massive nod to martial law for me.
Because it'd finish this off with saying, if you want a comic that breaks down superheroes in a superior fashion, you got to go for Pat Mills' martial law. I just think it does a better job of it.
Yeah,
and the art, I think, is better. Yeah, it's just a better comic, better product.
Do you think omnibuses are the way to go for a book like this, or do you think the standard trades, just the six issue trades? Because we're talking about like the pacing of books, and the boys is usually a 6-issue arc, isn't it? It's like it's arc.
I think it was written for an issue. I think reading it as an issue for me. I think obviously maybe leave it a couple of days and read an issue at a time or something.
I read it in issues, which might be why it's.
I was doing an omnibus a week for like 3 weeks, and it kind of. I was kind of a bit like fucking hell. Honestly, I've got eye strain because I've been doing so much reading and drawing and stuff. My eyes are fucking strained. But like, it wasn't. It sounds like I've been really negative about the title. I enjoyed it.
Okay,
I enjoyed the read.
So you enjoyed the experience of reading this, and would you continue with it?
Now that Tony said about like reading on to that bit, I will.
Oh, cool.
I think the endings. Once you know the characters a bit, the ending really hits really well. But it's a 60 issue run, so obviously that's a chunk of time, isn't it? So, I would say don't read the big omnibuses constantly down. Maybe do 6 issues. And
maybe
I
do like an issue every couple of days or something, and then work my way through it.
But it's also a fascinating series to try, seeing as how the world has moved on, how everything has evolved.
I was kind of shocked about Homelander in the comic to the TV series. They're almost completely different characters.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that going on in that.
Yeah.
He's kind of like, he just does some bad stuff in the comic, but there's people doing way worse stuff. He's not like a central antagonist. But in the TV series, obviously, he's the main.
Well, in the book, he does get by the end, he's completely There's some bits as well. There's some certain arcs that are completely different, like Black Noir.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, I know a bit about that bit.
Yeah.
Like the whole Black Noir thing.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting one. They said an itch I wanted to scratch. And I scratched it.
Yeah.
Fuck me, I went long there.
No. That's what this show's all about. Not scratching yourself.
No.
Going long.
Yeah.
Scratch your long self.
Dick.
Okay, from that to another manga. As I said, it was a paltry 60 million. But certainly one that has been in my. Dan bought me the first 2 volumes of this. This series has been spoken about a lot, I think, over the history of the pod. Certainly over the past five years, more and more. I know it's a favour of a lot of our listeners, and Dan, it's a personal favour of yours.
Yeah.
And this is Berserk by Kentaro Miura. Did I get that right? Or is
I do.
Yeah. Who is unfortunately no longer with us, passed away in 2001. This, I got through, like, I'm almost finished.
2021, was it? 2001, is it that long ago?
2021.
21, I thought you said 2001, sorry.
No, 2021, yeah. Now, this is a series that was going since 1990, and I got through almost at the end of the 3rd volume. And when I say the 3rd volume, these books are all like 200 pages each. You know, that's the thing about these. They're small little books, aren't they? These sort of manga books. I've got a couple of the Dark Horse. And I preferred reading, like, just sitting down and actually reading the small printed book rather than the PDFs. I've been reading some PDFs after I finished these 2 volumes, which is a very different experience anyway. But for those that don't know about Berserk, and I know I'm probably talking to only a few people, it's all about the Black Swordsman, aka Guts, who's a feared warrior spoken of only in whispers, bearer of a gigantic sword. Yep.
Yeah.
An iron hand and the scars of countless battles and tortures. His flesh is also indelibly marked with the brand, an unholy symbol that draws the forces of darkness and dooms him as their sacrifice. But Guts won't take his fate lying down. He'll cut a crimson swathe of carnage through the ranks of the damned, and anyone else foolish enough to oppose him. Now, I've heard so many... I've also enjoyed not knowing anything about this, like avoiding spoilers. For the amount of people that have talked about this and said, like, you know, if you... Normally when people talk about it, it's like, if you want, like, a dark, like, pretty fucked up, action-packed, gory, not safe for work, you know, all of these sort of different descriptions of Berserk. Just, you know, if there's one of those... If you're talking about an adult manga series, Berserk's usually in there, isn't it? As just being like pretty full on, as well as being dark, grim. This is grim fantasy, like action horror, I think, if there's a sort of genre. And I will say that it fucking delivers on it, right? This is
where did he get up to in the books? Where did you end off?
There was just a scene where Guts, the eponymous hero of our title, has just told someone, "Why don't you kill yourself?" And shortly
is it after the eclipse, or
no? I mean, to be honest, I've read 2.5. Getting to the, I'm deep in the weeds of the 3rd one at the moment, and there's 37 volumes of this fucking thing.
Move it along.
So when people go, "Oh, have you got to this bit?" No, I haven't. No, that's probably 5-10 books down the way. But this was a real... it's a fucking tour de force, isn't it? Like, as soon as he started this, it starts... The opening scene is a sex scene. Talk about starting where you mean to fucking go on. because Guts is having. If anyone's seen the classic, the first
rearranging someone's guts.
It's totally ripped from Conan, isn't
it? The Conan the Barbarian, Arnold Schwarzenegger sex scene, where he is there making love to a lady, and then she turns into a demon underneath him. And then he kills her.
It's a metaphor for life. That
then he kills them, and I was very much right. Okay, let's get on with this then.
Give me a minute.
And from there,
Give me a minute, love.
And then shortly afterwards, Guts meets Puck, an elf, who kind of is like almost. I mean, we say elf, but visually, it's almost like that. Flying pixie fairy kind of, there's they're androgynous in their own kind of way. They've got a feminine face, but it all feels very androgynous. It's almost like for anyone who knows like the Legend of Zelda games, it's got that reminiscent, the fairy that follows around Link as he goes around. So that I think it's a creator that's just taking all of these things and just putting it together and just making this fucking badass. It's an action.
You'd be surprised how much was influenced by Berserk. Obviously, you got Final Fantasy VII with the sword.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Recent Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman, yeah.
Because when we say he's got a sword, that is a character by itself. Because when I say it's a sword, that's the thing. You're reading it, and when you read an older book that has had such a massive cultural impact, it's a very unique experience reading it for the first time now. Because, and I think a lot of people have done this with so many things. You read it and just think, oh, isn't that like Final Fantasy? Or isn't that like this film or this thing? Not realising that that's only like that in the medium that you first saw it because the people were influenced by the book that you're reading at that point. It is both born of its influences and it's beautifully its own thing. It's wonderful that you said that, Dan, because I suddenly realised, oh yeah, well, Zelda's probably taken from that. When I think about the timeline, it's like, oh yeah, shit.
Not sure it.
But it is it rolls at a pace. It's not for me. It's not a quick read, even though a lot of it is an action book. Like there are pages and pages of him fighting these giant mutated monstrosities, and we're talking snail demons that pour out of people's mouths, and there's tentacles. It's grim, the demons in this, and it's usually people have sacrificed something to become a demon.
Have you got back to the bit where he jumps back, where he starts telling you about how there was a brief moment of a flashback, because he meets this group of people. Well, these people turn up in the story called the God Hand, who are like these 5 demons, the 5 big baddies of the whole thing. And then there's a slight flashback. You realise one of them is a character called Griffith, who Guts is after. So it's drip feeding. It's sort of telling the story a little bit as it goes on. As a reading experience, like it felt like, and I don't mean this in a sort of disrespectful way, because I'm sure it was all figured out, but it feels like a creator that has these ideas and an end goal, nothing really plotted out and sort of in concrete, and they're just going. It's almost like, okay, I know these are going to be the bad guys, and that's going to happen at that point. How do I get there? Let's just fucking draw it and see where it goes. It's almost like it's like an ultra violent, brutal stream of consciousness sometimes, and that comes across in and it could be down to the translation as well. That comes across in the writing as well, because it moves at such a pace that some of the dialogue isn't very in depth. Does that make sense? I'm sure it feels like the way people talk about it, it's like, oh, this is going to be this huge, multi-layered epic down the road. But at the moment, it is that man on a, it's the kind of the initial steps where he's kind of doing that, and then there's a bit where he does like a time jump, and I can't remember how the story mechanics work, but essentially he starts telling you how he gets to where he is now. And then the story just seems to go laser focused and find what it's doing. Right. So you're getting the adventures of this guy going around doing this stuff, and you're like, well, why is he doing all this? What's all this about?
Yeah.
And then it goes all the way back to the beginning, and you start seeing him take this journey, and the character changes up. Okay, I can understand why he's like this.
Because he's just a massive asshole so far for like 500 pages. Just a one, you know, this elf is following them around, and like Guts is just. I know he has this
horrible to him.
And he's like, don't hang around with me, because anyone that hangs around with me, they'll die because bad things follow me. And naturally, people say, "Oh, come on, share our camp," and then they get horribly murdered and brutalized. But
he doesn't sleep. I can imagine why he's such an asshole. Man, I lose a couple hours sleep, and I'm a right bastard.
Yeah. And Guts, I can see why Guts is like a bit of an icon of like the scene, because like visually, he's one of the ones for me that was always had a certain look, and a lot of the covers are just him with this sort of armor and his iron hand, which has a crossbow as well as a cannon. And he's got that massive sword, which is essentially a table, a sharpened table. That, like, the action that they get in this, you do have to dispense with the whole, you know, that how does that work? You know, they won't be able to carry that. This is one of those. Don't fucking worry about
like that kind of metal army he's got. There's actually a guy in Germany at the time, like a knight who had like an arm like that. I'm not sure how it works.
Amazing, yeah.
And you can see some mental cases online. They've built that sword and are like hawing it round. Like
they do actually mention it in the book as well. Sometimes, like, look at the size of that. They see that sword, it is something that people notice. And he is. I mean, he's got the nickname the Black Swordsman. There are certain moments. It's jaw dropping, the art in this book. Especially you have those pages which I presume are colour in the original format, but obviously in the everything's black and white.
Is there a name for that? Like when they did the first?
I wish I knew, because we talk about it
pages.
so much.
Yeah.
And
it's also it was also something that was done in the UK weeklies, wasn't it? Sometimes you see like first two pages were colour and then it go to black and white. But the colour ones are like just fucking forget it. The shade and the depth of everything. And you can tell when a creator is just having fun drawing. He loves drawing violence. And, like, there are pages and pages and pages of violence. If someone's going to have a fight and Guts is going to be tested, that could be half the book. And usually it involves the main character just getting absolutely beaten up. Like, just constantly until, like, he somehow pulls it out of the bag. There was one guy, they made a big scene out of it. And he'll just go in and you'll just see all of these, you know, this guard, this plated guard, fully plated guard, all with, like, crossbows and stuff. And it's like, you can't take us all out. And he just fucking nails them with his crossbow. And all the shots go in the eyes. And then he just brings a sword out and he just chops people in half. And then the guard had this... Oh, you say you're the strongest of all. Prove it. Take him out. And you have this full-on, almost a splash page of this big fucker in this massive armor. He's got a mace. You know, he looks like he's a tank. He's a walking tank. And in 2 pages, this bloke tries to hit Guts, and Guts hits him so hard in the stomach. The bloke hits a stone pillar, this massive stone pillar, right? And the blade's embedded in his stomach, and Guts just pushes the blade through this bloke, and it goes through the other side of the pillar. It was insane.
You enjoyed it then?
I was like, this is the best thing I've ever seen.
Classic fencing move.
Yeah, a classic fencing move.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't fuck about. I mean, I'm intrigued to see where this go. I mean, when I was reading these volumes,
they're still making it, aren't they? I just read actually. He's handed it off to his best mate, isn't he?
Yeah. What the thing is, I think his best mate, who does another series which I can't quite recall. He was really like, they used to talk all the time about it, literally all the time about this comic. So he kind of knows the plot of where he wanted to take it. It's a bit tragic because I think the guy was a genuine workaholic, and he just fucking.
He's only like 54. Yeah. He died. Yeah.
Yes, the creators. I don't want to get them wrong, but certainly, like Dan said, it's like we're not going to do anything that he didn't talk about. If he mentioned it, that's what we're going to do.
It's weird that a lot of the fan base now, like, you've been going back and looking at some of the stuff that he does a bit later on in the books. We're almost like a Kubrick-like what's he trying to say here? And there's scenes where like there's a character standing here, and there's like the shadow over a certain part of him, or they're stood a certain way, and they're like, what's the symbolism? Because he used to draw them like Renaissance paintings of like what certain things meant, and there's a hidden language for it.
I mean, I think this is obviously there was a lot of work that went into this, and a creator finding their voice through just grinding out the story, and like, you know, I think probably due to the nature of how the creator works, and it influences the story that's being produced and being delivered. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you can't have a mindset that makes a book like Berserk and then your next work is One Piece. Do you know what I mean? You can't go to that. You know, there are some people that can't work in light. Do you know what I mean? They're all, you know, there's, you know,
it's kind of like trying to say,
unfortunately,
Geiger, do you want to do a kids book all about like sunny meadows and stuff? It's just not gonna.
Welcome to this field of cocks.
That's his thing, and like that's what he does.
So, you know, I've only just started it, so it's the real visceral. I mean, it's like seeing a, you know, when you see a martial arts scene in a movie and they're doing stuff that you haven't seen before, and you're like, whoa. You know, and it's the beginning of the exploration into that. So I haven't gotten to the point where the creator
stick with it, because it's so rewarding when they start.
I mean, it's just that I kind of want to know, and I haven't touched the anime. I know it had a hugely successful anime, which I want to check out at some point. I think it ran until like 1997, 98, that kind of thing.
It's a relatively faithful adaptation.
Yeah. And because of that, I kind of like, I want to see the books before that.
Makes sense.
But now that I've experienced it, it's going to be interesting seeing the influence in the other stuff in the world now. Do you know what I mean?
Like all the Dark Souls games, they're directly from Berserk. I think the creators
and certainly all the creatures and stuff. I mean, we've talked about like manga and like creature creation, whether it's, you know, Chainsaw Man has like some like demons and stuff that is just insanity, isn't it?
Yeah.
But when they talk about like creatures from other dimensions and other realms and evil realms and all this kind of stuff, there's a lot of times where nothing can touch what manga books do. Just across the board, it's just real weirdness. It's weirdness. Which helps, because I didn't think like that. Like in the book 2 and book 3, one of the big creatures is like a slug. It's like a slug demon that is in like someone's head, and it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. So Berserk. I mean, I've rambled about it, but I certainly had fun. You can of course get the books on Dark Horse. Well, they've currently got 37. I guess 37 is all of them, isn't it?
I'm
so far
buying those big. I almost said that something wrong there. The books that are like a black laminate kind of foil.
So is this one like a proper one that you collect, Dan? This is a series that's very close to your heart. This one.
Yeah. I think I'm up to like book 13 or 14. I really want an ending to it. Do you know what I mean? Like a good proper ending.
Yeah.
I don't know if it can ever deliver after what's happened. It just may be one of those things that you have to kind of deal with. That.
Yeah,
it is what it is, and it is what it's going to be.
Yeah, but it is a book that has a legacy. And how many series can you say have that, really? So
I often tell Tony that my local independent bookshop, the graphic novel section, has been overtaken by manga, and the manga section has been overtaken by Berserk.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
okay.
It just seems to be so good. Well, as you can imagine, 37 volumes takes up quite a shelf.
People are pretty violent out in the fens, aren't they?
Yeah. This is true. Yeah, there's a lot. There is.
Yeah.
This is true.
So you know, if you like sort of medieval fantasy and stuff, and I'm a fan of that genre, but it's interesting. I think sometimes Western readers, maybe when they think of like manga and, you know, just say you're a fantasy genre, you know, sword and sorcery, or, you know, whatever it may be, you may be a bit skeptical about jumping into a manga that's a fantasy, because culturally there's different touch points and it may not necessarily work for you. But Berserk's pretty, actually, it just works, doesn't it? It's fairly universal.
You just jump in and get going. There's not some big kind of...
because he's created a universe, they're not necessarily talking about existing deities or anything like that. It's just absolute madness. So yeah, Berserk was a good one for me.
Nice one, cool.
Okay.
Now the big E. The big E.
Now
Looking
the
forward
big
to this one.
So after the episode of Eamonn, we were on our like special full chat, ACP and the Make-A-Wish kid, and I was chucking out, I chucked out the idea of doing Strangers in Paradise, a book I own. Didn't have to buy anything. It's all there in the cupboard, ready to go. And one I had finished, and thought, yeah, that'd be nice. And then I made a joke about reading every issue 1 of the New 52, and like every chat with a bunch of men on, I was happy with my two smiley face emoji and 1 thumbs up.
Yeah.
That's all you need.
That's all I needed. That was the touch paper for me to do a fucking stupid thing. So I read every single issue 1 of the New 52. And Tom, I hear you say, some of them have issue 0s. No. This is what I was interested in. It was issue 1.
They all started as 1s, didn't they?
It started as 1s. Some of them had 0s. And the point
they went back to 0, didn't they? I think.
And the whole point New 52 was jumping on point.
Yeah.
We often, how many episodes of this have we heard Tony say, shouldn't be like Coronation Street, you don't need to go back to a number 1. But this was a whole thing to get new readers on, and this was a way to sort of get.
I went to
a
midnight opening of a comic shop to get my first issues of this.
Nice.
Yeah.
Where was the comic shop, T?
There's the one in St Albans. They had like a people were dressed up. There was a party, loads of booze when it first came out. Yeah, I was massively invested in this. I've read everything that came out as well.
Yeah. So I'm going to share my screen, which is useless for an audio media, but I'm going to share it nonetheless.
Yeah, do it.
Because I kept a spreadsheet of all my readings.
That's what we like.
So what the chap's seeing now is my spreadsheet. So we've got title, writer,
I forgot about All-Star Western. I like that.
And then we've got 3 main categories. So we've got writing, art, and ACP. So all of these are scored out of 5. 3 is average. None of this, like, if you have less than 4 stars, it's a failure. It's a 3-star average. So writing, self-explanatory. Art is, how good I thought the art was. ACP. Everyone's heard me on this show before. I've turned up multiple times. If there was a suitable episode, would I bring it up on the ACP?
Okay.
I mean, like, if there's something, if we talk about westerns, would this be the one I'd go to?
Okay.
And then finally, so there for the score, those are just added together, and then finally there's a return. So, for example, 1 to 5, would I return? I've taken that score from the first 3 and then times it by the return. Because again, this is jumping off points. This was supposed to bring people into reading these comics.
Yeah.
And this is issue 1. This is your front door. This is a way to sell this to people.
Okay, so Tom, right, for the listeners that might be a bit scared now, thinking, Jesus, is this going to be 2.5 hours?
Well, do you want to read my first note I made on the first comic I read?
Sure.
Yeah.
Fresh-faced. Action Comics number 1. Writer Grant Morrison. Rags Morales doing the pencils. I gave it a 2 in art. Sorry, 2 in writing, a 3 in art, a 1 in ACP, and 1 in return. My note. Young Superman seems to have forgotten about Ma and Pa Kent and their teachings. God, this is going to be rough. A score of 6.
Okay.
So yeah.
What were the real highlights, Tom? What were the really highlights?
Thank you for asking.
I'd forgotten about All-Star Western.
Yeah,
I love that
series.
And
I think what's interesting about this is the New 52 is a phase, and this is terrible that time has moved on like this. Like, this almost feels like a historical moment, because it's how long ago was this?
Was it like 2010 or something? Was it?
Yeah, I was going to say 12, 13 years, but yeah, that would
something like that. I can't remember.
So I have my top 5, my bland 5.
Oh, Agent of Shade, love that comic,
and my bad 5. So top 5, number 5, we had Frankenstein, Agent of Shade. A series I've talked about before. I've recommended it to Tony. Love it to bits.
Yeah.
Animal Man number 1. A great
series.
Really
like that series, man.
It's such a good series, right? Like, it's really good. It's really good. Captain Atom.
I hate you for the bland mention there, by the way.
I will come to bland. We'll come to Captain Atom. Lovely art. Really lovely art. Really interesting story. Wonder Woman. Again, really nice art. And I think at that point I was just desperate for anything that wasn't shite. and then I Vampire. Yeah, my favorite from this whole thing.
Really? Wow. What talk about a niche comic there.
And again, they've done nothing with it. But it's a really fun one. I want to go back to and read again.
Yeah, which was a character in, I'm going to say, like House of Mystery, House of Secrets.
Yeah.
Years before, like decades before. Yeah.
My bland 5, Cecil just got middle of the pack. So in other words, no particular interest here. Grifter, Volume 3.
I didn't take. I loved OMAC. I loved it.
Yeah, maybe just caught me at a bad point. Again, I was reading these alphabetically. Maybe I just fell into bad patches.
That's Giffen as well.
Yeah,
Dan DiDio and Giffen.
Those sort of characters, like an OMAC one, is some people just won't connect with it. I don't think that.
They're also one of the earliest they cancelled.
Yeah.
Really?
Catwoman, Men of War, and Batgirl, Those are my plans 5.
Yeah.
And finally, my work. I think all of these scored 1s across the board.
Oh, okay.
Which technically I should change them now because I'm actually talking about some on the pod. But they still got 1s. Resurrection Man, which did nothing for me. Batman: The Dark Knight, couldn't stand
Resurrection Man was a reboot of an older series I talked about with Al on the podcast, and
maybe
interesting concept.
These are just my feelings. Maybe other people enjoyed them.
Yeah, that's fine. No,
Deathstroke, Legion Lost, and Hawk and Dove.
Was that Liefeld?
Yeah. What? Yeah. Yeah, let's go to the original table.
I mean,
Hawk and Dove. This looks so dated, it's unreal.
1-1-1-1.
Can
1-1-1-1.
Why can they not get the Hawk and Dove characters right?
I kind of like the Carl Kiesel one. I didn't mind it.
Yeah.
So
I like the 80s, 90s one.
A question for the room. New 52 comics. How many of them? What percentage of them do you think involve Batman or member of the Bat family in some way?
Oh God!
Oh, they're probably 12, 15. I'm gonna say.
Okay, so 12, 15.
Are we talking percentage or how many books?
Let's go
how
percentage.
many books? Oh, percentage.
Yeah. I reckon 45%.
45%.
So what did I say? About 22%.
Yeah, about 22%, 45%. Dan.
I'm gonna go good 60%.
60%. And again, I'm including like. If Batman turns up in a book, do you know what I mean? Like, it's a Robin.
Oh, so you've got Justice League as well, haven't you? Yeah.
Yeah. And you've got also,
Will you fuck off, Batman?
Will you fuck? Yeah.
That's on your notes.
Yeah.
I guess he turns up a lot.
How often did Batman turn up?
I'm going to go low. I'll say 15%.
15%. So again, if Batman was drawn in the book, or remember the Bat family came into the book, it was counted as a Batman book, or so he said Batman in there.
Yeah. And just this.
How much?
30%.
30.
Okay. It's more now.
It is, yeah. Go on,
sorry,
sorry, Vince. What were you going to say?
Well, I mean, just bear in mind this is like a massive, like line-wide launch of a new universe, and 30% of it is dependent on one character. Yeah.
I kind of see it as an interesting failed experiment, which I'm almost like proud of them for trying.
Totally.
In a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One more. I did one final bit of analysis on this, which was because, and I apologize to Sarah for this. I did a quick T-test on how I felt about Batman on average, because I didn't particularly enjoy Batman being there. Basically, statistically significantly, I disliked Batman being present in the book.
Okay.
It lowered the score for me
when it wasn't his book.
Yeah.
When it was, I didn't separate out quite that far. But
Really?
basically, if he was, the most egregious one for me was Justice League Dark.
Right.
I want it to be the bunch of weirdos, right? I want it to be.
Yeah.
I want it to be, your anyone who, Zatanna, John Constantine.
Yeah.
Get Frankenstein in there. Get like Swamp, anything.
I think. Yeah, Batman is a character that, like, if you're talking business and you're talking numbers, people know Batman, so they want to shoehorn him in everything. This will sell more because Batman's in it. The Judge Dredd, this page will sell more because it's got Judge Dredd on it, that kind of thing. So there's
unfortunately, it's true, isn't it?
It's
true.
Unfortunately, it's true. So there's that thinking. I can understand that. But me personally, I think Batman is a crutch, and he holds back so much of the DC universe that I'm at the point, and this includes Justice League, and I say this, I don't read much DC and stuff. I get the most enjoyment from Batman when I'm reading a Batman comic that's just about Batman. Mm-hmm. I don't want to see him interact with other people.
I don't want him in a team.
Yeah, I don't want him in a team. The whole Bat family thing is watered down.
It's all Bat family now.
Yeah.
All of it is Bat family now.
Yeah.
And even if he just turns up for just like the final page of something, or just his shadow shows up on a page, I'm like, eye roll emoji. But that's just me personally.
And there's other little fun. I mean, I got this was fine. Like I wouldn't recommend this. This was purely for content. You know what I mean? Like I didn't.
Yeah.
This was an interesting thing to do, and I kind of enjoyed the process.
It's interesting reading a publisher, like Tony said, really swinging for the fences.
Yeah. And
like,
it took chances on some characters,
it really did. Yeah. I mean, like Voodoo was in there, which again, I think it's but it was a real interesting book. Really, you know.
I actually think it's the last time that Swamp Thing was good as well. Not as good as it's been, but
no.
Good, interesting, readable stuff.
Yeah.
They gave Red Hood very kissable lips.
That's what we need.
He's got real kissable lips in that book.
Makes you wonder if they'd have gone like sentence. They'd have gone absolute on all of them, like give them the absolute treatment to the whole line.
The thing is, they didn't. They said they were rebooting everything, but not everything was rebooted. Like Batman has elements of continuity that continue through.
Yeah.
You know, there's a couple of them that did. I think Green Lantern had some continuity, didn't it?
Yeah. I mean, because they carried on the Blackest Night.
Oh right, okay.
Story.
Yeah.
But I mean, for example,
there's EVS as well, isn't it? That shows how long ago.
There's also there's a Red Lantern book in there. Like,
what? Sorry.
There's a Red Lantern.
Red Lantern. Yeah.
And like that was just quite an interesting book. Do you know what I mean? Like the fact they've got something reasonably interesting in there.
By the way,
especially as issue ones.
Right.
Yeah.
So
really? Yeah. So as issue ones, did they do their job?
Well, this is why I had the return thing in there. Do you know what I mean? That's why the return was such a big factor, because like, would I want to go back to it? So I'm just going to pick a Captain Atom. Oh, sorry, actually, I just mentioned him. Let's go for just trying to find an interesting one.
Because you would go into comic book stores and you'd see, and they got to a point where you wouldn't see a lot of the big titles. You'd see certain issue ones.
Was a good one.
And also, so Red Lanterns, right? Like, quite enjoyed it. It's quite fun. Okay. And it's a story I haven't seen before, and like, actually, I wouldn't mind going back.
And you got no attachment to any of that,
Oh, exactly. But there's, but again, trying to read it this way was maybe not the way they intended to do it.
Did you have any familiarity with the Eye Vampire before you did this?
Honestly, no. And the thing is, I'd seen lists of like saying it was a good book, in terms of like it being, you know, and I'd never got around to reading it. I'd read Animal Man, read Frankenstein, Swamp Thing, that kind of jazz, that story arc, but I'd never gone through the Eye Vampire one, actually. Really
There's not much out there, man. It's a very limited character. It's one of those ones I went, they're trying that. I think they obviously had to go for the Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, this sort of thing, but they thought, let's do a couple of different stuff.
Odd ones.
See if it hits.
Like All-Star Western, for example.
So Moritat, man, you can still pick up some of that art. Quite reasonable.
Really great series.
Really interesting.
Really great series. It was.
That was in Gotham, wasn't it? Don't they put him in Gotham again?
Yeah, they do.
What was the medieval one? The one where the demon was
Demon Knights?
Demon Knights, yeah.
That was Cornell, wasn't it?
Yeah, Cornell. I wanted it to be great.
Yeah, I remember thinking exactly the same thing.
It got a
I liked
score of 5.
Hawkman. I remember Hawkman being okay.
Where are we going? Hawkman. Sorry, just going from a table.
But
somewhere in there.
Did notice my name popped up on there.
It did, yeah.
You said a comic that you'd recommend to me.
Yes. Black Hawks Volume 1.
Oh, that is good. Yeah, I like that.
Okay.
I wrote down Dan Butcher comic. And I've known Dan for years. That's just a love and respect. It's a Dan Butcher comic, you know.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay.
I mean, if we just look at it on paper, if you take away the Batman and the Superman and the Wonder Woman, etc., like that, fair play to them to put out a lot of titles like that and just try these things. These things that, unfortunately, with hindsight, they're not going to get picked up, but hopefully they get at least 6 decent issues and a trade. Do you know what I mean, out of it?
I listened to Dan DiDio on Word Balloon around this time, and there was a lot of buzz around this, wasn't there?
Yeah.
And he was talking about they had these review points where certain books would only make it here, but they had the 52 slots, so something would take its place. It's almost like that. Yeah.
I mean, so this was this was kind of the thing that got me back into comics, in terms of, you do the thing, did as a kid, and then went to university, and then obviously read, and then this was the thing that got me back into it, because it was a jumping off point. Yeah. And I kind of got soft, and like I remember reading through forums and looking through like top 10 books from New 52 to read, and seeing like Animal Man and Swamp Thing, and that was kind of an exciting time to be like, oh, apparently Aquaman's quite good. Let's check that out and go, it's me, but like at least
You're a big Swamp Thing fan, Eamon. Did you enjoy that one and the Animal Man one? Were they ones you read, or?
I didn't read Animal Man. I did start the Swamp Thing one, but I can't really remember much about it. I didn't stay with it, unfortunately. No.
Right. Yeah.
I'm too classic with, well, obviously, as you know, 80s Swamp Thing.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Say my Alex the Campy quote, or I won't bother.
I've got
yes.
T-shirt on.
Yes.
What is it with dudes and Swamp Thing? Educate me.
Yeah. No.
What mate. I'm proud of you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Did you enjoy it? Did you enjoy?
No.
So this is it. This is interesting.
Good.
You liked some books.
Honestly,
but
I liked some books. This was not a way to read them.
Yeah.
This was this was not enjoyable at all. I love you guys to bits, but I would never do this again.
Well,
No,
Tom, to be fair to us, you did it to yourself, so don't blame us.
Yeah, exactly. I could have read Treasure in Paradise and been talking about incredibly well drawn women and great storylines and that kind of like a brilliant soap opera book. Instead, I'm reading Will You Fuck Off Batman about Justice League International. That's what. So no, I didn't enjoy this, but I did. There were some books.
Batgirl comic.
Yeah.
That's the Batgirl comic we talked with Andy Clift about. Do you remember? Because isn't that the one where they take her out of the wheelchair?
They took her out of the wheelchair.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
That's awful idea.
Yeah.
If I was to give it more nuance, there's some comics I'm going to go back and read. I'm going to go back check out I Vampire all the way through. There's some other bits and pieces. I might go back and read Red Lanterns, but this wasn't the way to do it.
Get you, man. No, good work.
This is not the.
That's a reading challenge and a
What
half.
a mixed bunch of reading challenges we've had.
Yeah.
But I think that's good in a way, right? Like it's good to have.
Yeah, it's not always going to be. It's not always going to work.
No. Sometimes you gotta have the rough and the smooth, right? And sometimes,
We came with the facts, man.
Yeah. I think there is something for everyone amongst all of that. Even with that huge 52 issue ones, you never know when you're going to find something like an iVampire which is really going to connect with you. Do you know what I mean? And probably that's the one you'd recommend out of all of them, Tom.
For me, I mean, again, this is just what I'm interested. When I was reading it that date, that's the one that really stuck with me.
Have you read any other issues of it since, or?
I've been saving myself for it. I wanted to keep myself at just a
lovely,
simple, just number ones.
Don't want to dilute the squash.
No.
Yeah.
And now now I'm free.
No, you're free.
It's all about analysing the data.
Yeah. But no, it was
Massive respect for that Excel sheet because listen, it was all filled in, all the columns were there, it was all done great. That's work.
I realised that again, if I was just to read them and not make a note of them, then I'm just going to come back to some wobbly like, I kind of enjoyed it, but not really. But actually, no, I've got the data there, so I didn't enjoy it. And That's
got the statistics, and for Tony's benefit, you included the standard deviation.
I did actually, yeah. I did put the SD in there as well.
There's nothing standard about my deviation, that full well.
Oh dear. But I mean, the reading challenge, we always have fun doing it. I think that's the whole point about it. Like, don't do this if you're not. I know Tom's saying this wasn't enjoyable whatsoever, but that's because he went the extra mile and he's a bit of a masochist.
But he triumphed.
I enjoy talking with you guys. I enjoy doing
exactly.
it. I never would have done.
Listening.
Yeah, it's an experience, right?
Yeah. But and obviously we are doing this for the show and for the format. So there's we have set homework for ourselves to do. But I honestly think to all of our listeners, maybe with the festive period coming up and Christmas and these times where sometimes we're just going to be chilling out, if there's that one book or that one series you're thinking, I've been meaning to read that at some point, take that quiet time to, instead of buying loads more stuff to add to the read pile, take a look at something that you've always wanted to read and try it, because it really, it can be a success, or sometimes you may not enjoy it, but at least you can scratch it off that list of
You're
things.
saying we should stop buying shit comics? Let me write that down. Hang on.
Yeah.
You agree something you don't enjoy, then that's valuable in itself, right? You just think, well, I don't like that. So
but there's a difference between like taking a punt on something and just saying that looks interesting, I didn't enjoy it, and maybe having a pull list where you just keep coming back week after week to be just tormented by the things that you're reading and not enjoying.
What's that one you mentioned on Wednesday?
What?
There's a comic you brought up in the best in your NIA.
Which one was it? Oh yeah, Negasonic. Oh my god!
Fucking
I think it's good advice to treat everything in comparison to a rather bad sexual incident that you had? Is it better or worse?
Really?
Because sometimes bad sex can be good, can't it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No.
I use
Tom's always happy.
the Tom scale of like how much money it cost and how much enjoyment I got out of it.
Yeah, that's a
That
good one.
ratio.
Oh, you
Like
can't
anything
do
then
that
at
with
this
comics. You can't do that with comics. Like,
Yeah.
you're never going to get 5 hours.
Thing is, when it comes to reading comic stuff, you can't even depend on would you read it again, because there's so many books that are, this is amazing, this is a classic, I love this, I don't want to go through that experience of reading it again. Especially,
it's like seeing a movie. You're never going to watch it again because you've just had that moment, that experience. Yeah, we're going back to our conversation with Eamonn about what we would then do with them. But yeah, should we?
Yeah, but what we can do with these is either continue reading them, put them on the shelf, and just smile at them, thinking, "I finally read you," or like Tom, delete your spreadsheet and forget you ever did it. But either way, it's all comics, so it's all good, and we've got even more comics to talk about beforehand. But before then, do we have any shout-outs this week, gents?
Got a few. So first up, big shout out to Tom Stewart for sending me some great comics this week. He sent me X-Men Grand Designs. I sent you some pictures of it. Really kind of him for doing that. Big thanks to Mark Abnett for his brilliant portrait of my dog, Sharknado. I showed you that as well today.
Yeah, that's great.
Go to markabnettcomics.com. Mark's obviously had a ball at Thought Bubble because he's been sending loads of images and wandering around.
Nice.
Well, I just received Truck Mutts through from Ian Matthews.
Oh yes,
yes, I've got mine in the post.
Been looking forward to that. Great for those that haven't seen it. Great Marvel UK kind of nostalgia hit. And I got a badge. It's very always cool to get a badge.
I'm writing my fucking name and biro on the top of my mind.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yes.
Actually. Yeah.
Yes. I think Ian's on the Slack channel.
Yeah,
right? And I know he does listen to this show. Like, if you get your hands on a copy of Truck Mutts, issue 1 or issue 2, let's all write our surnames on the top corner and send it to him. Because I think
that's a good idea.
You know,
yeah. Mister. By Vacatia. Yeah.
I didn't like the geezer writing on my comic. I gotta say.
Oy. Yeah, I know. Yeah. All the British weeklies have got a name on the top, haven't they? That you get off eBay.
Yeah.
So for the US people or overseas, when you used to get it ordered for the newsagent, for the paperboy, they would write in the top right-hand corner, that's going to the Butcher household. So when they delivered the Miura or whatever, that's how that one goes in there. That's Butcher.
Yeah.
Well, there's none of this back issue resale shit back then, was there?
Yeah.
No.
My final one is You Get What You Get, and it's the newest comic from our buddy and the most prolific man in comics, Dave Robertson. There's stories in there called Art Theory, Catbox, and my favourite one called Yeah, Well, Fuck You. It's all written by Dave, with one by Ethan Robertson, with art by a host of small press people, some of the people, buddies of ours. Helena Edwardson does one, Fraser Geesin, Andy Hanks, I haven't spoke to Andy for ages. Rosie Hathaway, Nando, our buddy Nando, Alex Potts does one, Mike Sadaka, and Tom Stewart all do a comic in there. So that's great. So it's some real. It's a lovely little.
I have to track that down. I've lost the link to that.
Have you?
Yeah,
I'll send it. I got it on a Dropbox.
Cheers.
I'll send it to you. Yeah, some really good stuff. They're my ones.
Nice. Dan, what have you got?
I've got two to shout out, 2 Kickstarters. Gonad the Bulbarian, 100-page original graphic novel.
It makes me laugh every time.
Yeah. You can't back that anymore because that's actually completed. So that's been and gone. So forget that one.
Balls.
Oh, bollocks.
Balls to that. You got the Press Guardian issues 1 and 2. A badass freedom of the press defending disinformation fighting Nazi
a couple of days
red
left,
hair. Yes, got probably about 6 days when you listen to this podcast. If you listen to it on the Monday, taking on big tech, Russians, and Nazis. Absolutely fantastic comic. Do go check that one out. Sort of a pulp. How would you call it? Public domain.
Golden Age. Yeah.
Golden Age. Yeah. Brought up to reimagined.
Going back Shah as well by Pat and Olivier Ledroit, which is currently storming it on Kickstarter. Good to see.
Brilliant.
It's made a lot of money, and it's going to be the hotness when it comes out. It looks absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, really good.
That's done, yeah.
That's all yours, Dan. A couple from me. Jason Pearson's Body Bags, the artist edition, currently has 2 days left to go. They just crossed the $100,000 mark, so that's 82 grand.
Bloody hell.
So that's going to be good. and also a Cullen Bunn's Triple Threat of Terror.
Oh yeah.
That's got 9 days left to go as we talk. Cullen Bunn, who we had so much fun talking to about horror and stuff.
Yeah.
So you can, if you want to visit alien worlds, wander lost highways, and chainsaw your way through demon hordes, there are 3 one-shot horror comics available on Kickstarter now. So jump on that. I've only just discovered that, so I'm going to jump on that. One thing that you can jump on, no, don't jump on us, but you can jump on down to London on the January the 25th, 2025, the Marquee Cornwallis Pub, London, WC1N 1AP. And if you're there from 12 noon onwards, you'll be there for a hell of a party time, because it is the day episode 500 of the Awesome Comics Podcast happens. There will be a live recording. There is going to be a charity raffle, and there may even be, well, not may, there will be, a comic book pub quiz hosted by Tom.
Oh, it's me. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. You got to be on it, Tom. On the day, you got to be on it, babes. You got to be on it. When I key you in, you got to be on it.
Yeah.
Are we going to have some special prizes for that week?
I will get some prizes sorted out.
Yeah.
Night with Dan.
Yeah.
Night with Dan.
That's first prize.
So
Day with Dan.
Yeah. So if
prize.
A day with Dan, a day and a night with Dan is
yeah.
Topping and tailing with Dan. We're calling that one.
Yeah.
Oh God. There was things just went through my head that I could not say out loud,
That's what Dan
especially on a recording. But yeah, as well as all that, like if you're coming along, I know we've got a bunch of listeners coming along. Everyone is welcome. We're basically just having a laugh. We're going to be talking about comics and like raising some money for charity as well as doing a live recording. It's just going to be a fun afternoon and evening with a bunch of great people. So whether you listen to the podcast or not, if you want to bring people along just for a nice, have a lovely afternoon, it's going to be awesome. And things like the pub quiz and stuff, it's not going to be, if you didn't listen to episode 25, then you won't. Yeah,
it's just be a laugh.
Wouldn't dream of doing that.
Yeah.
We'll be pissed out of our minds by then anyway. So it'll be,
It's going to be more of a suggestion than a pub quiz.
Bad Tony will be out by then, so it'll be all right.
Oh God, he is the Lady Gaga of the group.
Bad Tony.
Yeah, he's.
I told them that at work. They said, "Are you not going to have another drink?" I said, "No, Bad Tony will come out."
Yeah.
And they started chanting, "Bad Tony, Bad Tony."
Yeah. Dan, don't look up a Bad Tony on Urban Dictionary.
No,
anyway,
one.
and yes, so feel free to come along to that. Anyway, we've got some other sign-offs later.
Sorry, have you guys got a shout-outs?
Do you want to shout out anything?
Risotto. It's really nice.
Which
risotto can get in the bin, mate.
Fair enough. Okay.
No, defend it, Tom. Defend it.
Oh, sorry, apologies. Yeah, it's really. What are you talking about, you muppet?
There you go.
Yeah.
That's it. Over. We're not friends now.
No.
What do you like risotto, Tony?
I love risotto.
Yeah.
When I was in Minorca a few weeks ago, I had some, didn't I? I liked it.
Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah,
thoughts on
a bit much in it. There's loads to it, though.
Eamon's staying suspiciously quiet. Risotto, how do you feel?
Risotto's lovely.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it. Yeah.
Us middle class blokes. You see on
Orzotto as well. I make orzotto. That's nice.
Oh, what's that?
What's that?
Risotto with that little pasta orzo.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Me and my guardian reading ways.
When should we come round? We'll all come round to Eamonn's.
Yeah. We'll all have a nice cup of tea and an
There's parking
orzotto.
for 8 cars. He's in and out driveway.
Yeah.
We'll all be there in our large Land Rovers and our hunting dogs.
It'd be like that TV series Rivals.
Only
exactly
Moorcocks. Anyway, from us talking a load of nonsense to some comics to recommend. First up, spoilers. I haven't got one this week, and I don't feel bad about that because we've got 2 amazing guests to recommend some comics, and the guests are going to go first and last again. Eamonn, you're going to kick us off because we haven't heard from you for a little bit.
Okay. Well, I'll talk about books that debuted at Thought Bubble. I picked this up yesterday, first thing. Early Gigs, Underground Comics, 1970 to 1973 by Dave Gibbons, from Dark and Golden Books, edited by Tom Oldham and Douglas Noble. And this is, as it suggests, this is 9 early comic strips that Dave Gibbons did for a variety of obscure, lesser-known comics from the early 1970s, with commentary by Dave Gibbons himself, and there's an interview with Dave Gibbons at the back of the book, black and white. I went straight to the table. I actually bought myself a copy. I bought Tony a copy. I bought a copy for Richard Sheath as well. I was showing this to people yesterday on the con floor and this morning before we left, and everybody was saying pretty much the same thing, that Dave Gibbons, a bit like Brian Bolland, in that he was almost the finished article straight away.
He was.
Totally.
Yeah,
agreed.
You look at these and he's astonishingly good straight away.
His early stuff all the way through to his recent stuff has all been solid.
Yeah.
There's
kind of frustrating that as an artist.
And you can see, I was looking at these and I was thinking, some of the back matter that featured in Watchmen when he was having to do different sort of comic styles, including some underground comic sort of stuff from cartooning, you can really see in this book. I'll also quickly mention that at the end of the book, all of these were published apart from the last strip.
Okay.
5-page comic called Need a Fog Set, which he did for a character that Tony and I are going to be studying up on and talking about in the future, a chap called Felix Dennis. And it went unpublished. And there's a rather lovely story at the end that goes with it, because after Felix Dennis passed away about 10 years ago, Dave Gibbons wrote to his estate and said, do you still have the original artwork? Now, they did, and you can imagine if you've got 5 pages of Dave Gibbons artwork, even if it's early stuff, probably worth a bob or two.
Yeah.
But yeah, because they stood by Felix Dennis and his own scrupulous, always giving back artwork, they gave the artwork back to Dave Gibbons, and here it is published for the first time. I think Dave Gibbons made a donation to his favourite charity, which is Plant a Tree. So yeah, that's really lovely. And if you want a copy, Dark and Golden books, go to darkandgolden.bigcartel.com. It's a tenner, plus I think it's about £5 for shipping, if you're interested. So that's mine.
Good stuff, man.
Nice. Okay, Tony, what have you got?
Mine is Printopia by Bob Fingerman, 106 pages, mixture of black and white and colour. Really interesting mixture of black and white and colour as well. I'm looking forward to this. Yeah. Oh man, published by Cosmic Line Productions. Because we're buddies with Bob, he sent us through a copy. It's out on Wednesday, so if you listen to this on the day of the release, it's out in 2 days' time. It's an accompaniment to 2 things. His art book, That's Some Business You're In, which came out recently through Zoop, that we had him on, I'm going to say about 8 months ago, something like that, maybe a year ago he came on. Do you remember? And we talked about that, and that's a lovely art book. Along with, he's just about, talk of Rich Sheaf, because I think he proofreads this actually. He's in Illustrator magazine. He's the featured artist on Illustrator magazine, which comes out, I think, next month as well. The story, so it all takes place in the orbit of 2 things. A rather busty female shop worker called Darla Vogel, and she lives in the Upper West Side of New York in a small flat with her ex-girlfriend and somewhat nutty flatmate called Candy. Darla works at a shop called Printopia. It's a small print shop. In fact, as the story opens, she's just got the job, and she says, I only work in things, businesses that are disappearing. Like my last job was at a video rental shop, so she says, like, she's almost saying like print is on its way out. And she's got an arc as well. She's a story in it, but what happens is you get characters who come into the shop, and it features them for a short amount of time. So there's some absolutely great characters who come in, but each of these characters that comes in, they've all got their own thing going on, but they all have a little character who's normally in color, because most of this is black and white, brown and white, kind of just 2 color, has a little muse that floats around that only they can see, and that's part of the narrative story. There's one character called what's his name, Schecter Hollis, and he's quite a sort of short, hairy dude who's into writing Dungeons and Dragons fiction. And he's massively into Darla. He massively fancies her, and he keeps coming in. And while he's at home, he often will fantasize and masturbate to ghostly images of 2 aunts who turn up from the afterlife. And one of them says, "Why do you keep plucking us from the afterlife every time you want to disrespect your wee-wee?" He dreams one day of not being a virgin, and he dreams of being a sort of Bisley-esque barbarian. And Bob changes his style to almost like his version of what Bisley would draw on this page, sort of standing there with all these sort of buxom, blue-skinned female barbarians. There's Carl Fitzhugh Carruthers. He's an amateur author. He's written books called Homogeddon 2012, The Jews in the Walls, and Our Coloureds from Outer Space. He's this sort of fucking racist. Christ. He's this racist who goes away, comes in the shop, and Darla, God bless her, she says, "Nah, we're not publishing your shit. Off you go." And he has two muses. One of whom is Lovecraft, and this is Bob saying, "Look, everyone loves Lovecraft, but he also was quite a big racist as well, you know." And while he's talking to his muse, another muse appears, because obviously to be like the anti-muse, and she's called Angela Shoggoth, and she's a black woman with a big sort of afro, and the two muses start fighting because they're in Carl's imagination. He's talking to them and being a bit racist, and people then from around him start attacking him. So each section has these like characters. They're just really good. There's another character who's an underground cartoonist, and he's also a fry cook in a local diner, and he's one of these underground cartoonists who's really good. And when Bob draws him, he drops characters from underground comics into the background, the street scenes.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. So you see, there's Pussy from Klaus, who's walking about in the background and stuff like that. Crazy Cat, these sort of characters are all in the background. And it genuinely is a joyful series. And to me, what Bob's doing here, and hopefully we'll get to ask him this, he's doing his own version of Contract with God. You know, Eisner, so let's not forget, it's New York based. Bob is New York based, as was Eisner. Yeah, Contract with God is about these characters who live in sections of New York, aren't they? I think, wasn't Contract with God in the Bowery? I seem to remember. I can't remember exactly where it was.
Yeah.
But I know, but Bob's kind of like, he's like what Eisner did with his characters. He's chosen sort of punk rock, grubby, dirty faced, crazy, smelly people, and he's focusing in on them. And they all rotate around this print shop, and they are mostly horrible people, but Bob manages to humanize them all by doing this. And throughout the story, we dip back into Darla's story, and she has something of a redemptive arc as well, with a girlfriend and ex-girlfriend, and working in the shop and beginning to relate to people. And there's so much going on in this. This is, I mean, you know, I'm a massive Bob Fingerman. That's why we're friends really with him. But Bob says he thinks I'm the biggest minimum wage fan in the world. I've got a page of it in front of me actually. But I think he's one of the greatest cartoonists. I think he's very much undervalued these days. When we look to like people with just Burns and, you know, all these sort of people, we look to these people. I think Bob's up there, massively up there. But along with that, what you also get is you get a massive Mad magazine reference. You can, because Bob was in the last few issues of Mad when it had original material. I know he was very proud to be in it as well. And there's definitely some Mort Drucker in there. There's definitely some Al Jaffe. And as we talked to Bob about when he was on, you can see the Kurtzman influence in there, because Kurtzman taught him, didn't he, when he was at the SVA, School of Visual Arts? I think he was that, wasn't he? And you can also say there's a cartoonist called, I get everyone to look it up, Charles Rodriguez, who is a book that Bob gave me when I was around his house, who he curated a collection of Rodriguez's books. Rodriguez was strips. Really interesting character. I think there's such, this is the best graphic novel I've read this year, easily. And I think it's going to, I don't think Cosmic Lion are particularly well known. I couldn't find it on Amazon. You need to pre-order it from the shop. As I say, it's out in a couple of days. Everyone is so sharply envisaged. The characters are the people you would not sit next to on the number 68 bus. In fact, there's this sort of big smelly person who Bob plays on. Don't sit next to this person on the tube. Jesus, what a whiff! You know, he plays a bit on that as well. But a lot of humour, a lot of love, and an awful lot of craft in this. Definitely, it's really. I've sent it to you guys in preparation, but go and have a look at you. You can also go to bobfingerman.com, at Bob Fingerman on Instagram, and you go cosmiclionproductions.com. online to have a look at this. But yeah, it really reminds me of where he lives. Where pardon me, because I call him Hollywood Bob now because he lived in Hollywood, but where he used to live in New York. In fact, we almost had like a friend's argument where I said, "You've drawn that diner we went to. That's where we sat." And he went, "We didn't go to that diner. We went to a different one, Tony." And I felt like saying, "No, we went to that diner." No, that's so like that. It's it's a brilliant book, man. So good. So pleased to have read it early.
Checking out, man.
And a sort of bit of pride in me to have seen it early and everything. Yeah, you guys have got it as well. Yes. I've sent it to you guys as well to have a look at it. So, yeah, good. That's my first one. That's my main one. And it's called Printopia. Printopia. Bob Fingerman. There you go.
Nice. Dan, what have you got?
I'm going to be relatively quick because Tony's already spoken about this before. But I recently joined up to Zack Cahill's Patreon. And one of the benefits I get from that is copies of Omega Black Threat Level Ultra. And I've got issues 1 and 2, which just came through this week. Am I right thinking he prints these at home? What's the name of the printing process? Is it Rizzo? Is that the right thing?
It looks like that. I'm not sure if it is, but it does look like that. Yeah.
So these are an absolute chunk. Like, you must be doing this on card. But essentially, it's like a kind of a throwback to kind of trash 80s action cinema. And the quote inside the issue 2 is Venice Beach Video invented comics. Everything before this was just warming up. And that's quotes attributed to Barbara Crampton, which is you'll know her as a horror star from the 1980s.
Yes.
Still would.
And a horror star still.
Still, yes.
Yeah, still plays in
Did
films.
the last Puppet Master.
I was quite pleased with myself that I got the reference that Zack has used for the homage of issue 2. It's off of a film called, I think, Silk 2.
Right.
Because I've got one of those, I think you might have the same book. There's a cover of like the greatest VHS videos from the 1980s. And such a lovely book. If you want to treat yourself for Christmas, that's one to get.
Oh, cool.
So become a patron for Zack and then get some of these comics.
I rate it, man. It's great. It's a great one to be on. Yeah.
Nice. I loved it. It's so much fun. It just madcap comics where just crazy shit is happening.
Best back cover of a comic ever as well.
Yes, I think the back cover to issue 1 is well up there. I mean, I don't think
you have to see it for yourself.
I don't think there's much competition on like back covers of comics, but if there was, this would be a number 1.
Wow, there you go. There's a testimonial for it.
Zack.
Tom.
Yes.
Tom, do you want to sign us off?
Yeah, so it was my birthday relatively recently, and
happy birthday!
Thank you,
birthday,
thank
Tom.
you. And through the posts, I got some lovely books, but one of these was Junkyard Joe.
Yes.
From Tony.
Hey.
I read this this week. I didn't clock the image or mad ghost in the corner. I this episode we had where you talked with what was the name of the chap? You talked about mad ghost with some. I can't remember.
Ghost Machine.
Ghost Machine, yeah.
Who was we talked about Junkyard Joe with? Can't remember. But go on. Sorry. Yeah.
I read through it kind of blind. Do you know what I mean? Like I read through it, saw the front, and there's a lot of, like, it wears a lot of references on its sleeve. This book, in terms of what it talks about, like the Peanuts reference. The Peanuts is obviously a massive reference to this as well, but also the kind of the Vietnam War comics too. And just a joy to read. A real joy to read. It holds everything on its sleeve, and it was a real solid, like, you can have this completely on its own. And it was that sort of the last that last bit at the end, the sort of last page at the end, where it's sort of like the game is on in terms of the idea of like, oh, there is actually connected something bigger in this. You see the timeline, and you go like, oh, actually, okay.
Yeah.
Because I was almost initially annoyed about that last page, because initially I thought it was just going to be like, oh, this is just a one and done comic done.
Yeah, I know what you mean, man. I hope they don't mess with it too much. That's how I feel about it. Yeah.
I was like, this is a good period of time, and you've done a good story of this, and it you know what I mean? Like, cool. Line. I don't need to see it. I don't need to see anything else from this in terms of, like, I've seen all I need to see, and it's an incredibly enjoyable experience, and the art's beautiful, and the swap between like the more sort of cartoon, the stronger cartooning style of like the Peanut style stuff is really great, and back and forth, beautiful. And then that last page comes in, I'm like, oh, please.
Okay,
yeah.
Just either give it such a big time gap, it makes no difference. You know what I mean? Like, it's basically a fresh character.
Yeah.
Don't set it 2 years later or 5 years later. Give us like, and like looking at the timeline, that seems to be the case of what it's doing. So yeah.
I saw Jeff John's post saying that the Junkyard Joe action figures now sold out. like
Really?
sold out in a couple of weeks.
That's really cool.
It's great.
That's really cool.
To me, like John's, I mean, we should mention Gary Franks on the art, just gorgeous.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
Jeff
amazing.
Johns, he just knows how to write a comic. Same as like
Yeah.
Mark Waid, Peter David, Jerry Duggan. There's these people out there just know what you
They've
need
got
in
the
a single issue
pacing,
comic.
they've got everything about
Yeah.
it.
You know
It's
what?
just spot
The
on.
pacing really was spot on, and like
Yeah.
knowing
Yeah.
when to put those big emotional bits, like
Yeah.
knowing the page turn as well, that
Yeah.
big emotional bits in there, but also cutting up with like a peanut style page of
Yeah.
like, I don't want to say fluff, but basically like a break in there. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
having those highs and also lows as well. Really good.
Yeah.
Really solid.
That was
Yeah.
one book that I got the tradition we may remember is I always buy myself a trade to read on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Oh.
would be a fantastic book
Yeah.
because
Perfect one.
snow, good vibes,
Yeah.
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 Yep.
well
Heartwarming.
done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think they haven't paid us for
That's
any
your
of
book of
this.
the year, Vince, isn't it?
Yeah, I think
This is easily in the top 5 books. for me.
You will be hearing about this book again, without a doubt. And as Dan said, I think that's a brilliant. We always like to recommend some stuff, but if you want to sit down and just enjoy a book that it's going to make you feel a lot of emotions,
Yeah.
but also you'll feel good reading this book.
Yeah. And I think, yes. Yeah, do you know what it was? Yeah. No, yeah. No, sorry, apologies. I'm going to say the phrase now because I was just saying yes to nothing. Yeah. Eamon's just a bit of found out it was Zack Cahill who was on the that episode.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know, I think there's quite often with comics we get so excited about like, a 400 issue run, a 30 issue
Yeah.
run.
Yeah.
And actually just seems to be like, and like no one got to the end of Pride and Prejudice like, oh, you know what? That's going to be another
Yeah.
book in that, isn't it?
Yeah.
I reckon there's even
Sometimes when
more.
people say there's going to be another one, I'm like, please don't.
Yeah. And like
Yeah,
actually sometimes it's okay just to be like, actually this is a really nice book. It looks great on the shelf. Beautiful. It's just that thing of you can just give it to someone and then that's it. That's a story.
Yeah.
That not everything needs to be 400 issues and sell 60 million copies. It's good some things do.
Yeah.
You can also
Yeah,
just have
yeah,
things
I
that are just
agree,
like
man.
a story.
Yeah.
Well, mate, it's fucking Last Ronin all over again. Last
Yes.
Ronin is great.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to do more of it now because it's sold really well. But you
Yeah.
don't need to do any more.
Yeah. You got it. You did
finished.
the story.
Yeah.
Dark Knight 2.
Yeah.
What?
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
After Watchmen.
Yeah.
Dark
You
Knight
could-
2, I got that, like, the special hardback, all the fucking bells and whistles, and I just felt fucked over.
Yeah. I mean,
Over.
yeah, but there is a certain point when the dangerous thing about that, it's when you get these things, and you get over it with time. I find,
Yeah.
but the initial reaction tarnishes the first one. If it's shit, you'll immediately have negative thoughts about that story. Do you know what I mean? But then you sort of remind yourself, oh no, I still love the original. I just need to pretend that the other one doesn't exist. Yeah.
I mean, V for Vendetta, great story. It's done. You know?
Yeah.
It's done, and that's great. And like, I don't want to see anything more from that. I'm all good.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
And if I want to see anything more, I'll read it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the beautiful thing about independent comics and some of these classic stories is that when they're done, they're done. And in terms of that, we're done. This. Have you got another one to mention briefly, Tony?
Can I just mention briefly, sorry, because I did promise this dude I'd mention it. I'm just reminded. So Stupid by Paul Courtjohn, Comics for the Culture. Comics for a Culture in Decline. It's from the Junk Crew. I'm going to probably do it next week, but
Okay.
just apologise, Paul. We running a bit late on time. I know I mentioned it this week, so probably go over to next week.
Yeah.
There you go.
And we are done for this week. So many fucking comics to add to your pull list. And
There's a lot of
yes.
comics.
So don't blame us if you're broke around Christmas time.
Probably going to be anyway.
We'll be proud of it.
Yeah.
But if there's anything that was talked about on the show, if there's any other stuff you want us to talk about, and as we've kind of designed the rest of the year, so we're looking forward to 2025 now. We're planning for the next year. So if there's anything next year that you got coming up, or any comic book stores that you want to shout out, please do get in touch with us. There's several different ways you can do it. You can email us awesomecomicspod@gmail.com. Follow us on social media at awesomecomicspod on Instagram, or at the Awesome Pod on X. And thank you for listening to us, whether it was on the website awesomecomics.podbean.com. If you listen on Apple Podcasts, thank you very much. You can leave a review, make it a nice one if you're a nice person.
Thanks if you've left the US review, because Tony.
Yeah, we looked at the US ones earlier. I used the VPN and look at them. Yeah, some great ones. Yeah, thanks everyone.
But wherever you are in the world, like, we truly appreciate anyone listening to this show, and we have fun doing it, and we hope you enjoy listening to it, whether it was on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Stitcher, Podnose, Podknife. What the networks are we on, Tony?
We're on the network. It'll help if you hit it with a spoon.
Is that Eamonn shaking his head? Is that because you discussed what Tony said, or do you disagree with the statement?
Usually things better if you hit it with a spoon. Yeah, this is true.
Well, of course, we're talking about the Boiled Egg Network. And
boiled eggs.
Speaking of eggs, these eggheads have made this week a very enjoyable show. So where can people find us all online, etc.? Tony?
Neveronanything.com. Cute.
Dan?
Find me on Twitter, aka X, at Vanguard Comic, and you can be Vanguard at VanguardComic.com.
You can find me on social media at Justin Diablo. Eamonn, where can you find you and your wonderful podcast?
Megacitybookclub.com, or thanks to my collaboration with The Onion, I'll soon be proud owner of neveronanything.com as well.
I think it's InfoWars.
InfoWars, yeah.
Nice.
The thing is about The Onion, if they post anything now, you can't believe it. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I thought it was a joke at the first.
And Tom.
Hello.
Where can they find you?
You can find me at home, having dinner, just living my life. But if you want to follow someone on Twitter,
there's a very comfortable tree outside his house that if you sit in it, you can take some really good pictures.
Yeah, you
especially in his bathroom.
If you want to follow someone on Twitter, follow FW Film Festival. It's a Bristol-based.
Oh, of course, you went to that recently. Was it good?
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's really good.
There you go.
Follow them; they're great.
I seem to get quite a lot of Bristol memes coming along my timeline now, and they're all quite funny.
Just check them down. Yeah.
So all these people who kind of like quite artsy, and they move.
It's the new Brighton.
Yeah. And from those sort of artsy people to whoever we're going to talk to next week, who will it be? Well, you have to join.
We got a good one.
You have to join us again to find out.
It's going to be mega.
It's going to be another. Tony's pleased with himself there. You actually look like a GIF then, Tony, because you were making the same head movement with he's just nodding constantly. Look at him in his gorgeous hair. Anyway,
everyone's nodding.
Right, we're everyone's nodding, and the audio listeners can't tell. So until next week, join us back here, same bat time, same bat channel, for more comics talk and lots of things to add to your wish list. From Dan, Tony, Eamonn, Tom, and myself in ACP Towers, we're off to have a cheesy fondue and maybe get in a bubble bath, but we'll see. Until then, have a brilliant week. Keep reading loads of comics, making loads of comics, and as always, guys, this is going to be interesting because there's 4 of you. What should they do?
Stay awesome.
Stay awesome.
What an absolute cluster. That was phenomenal. Bye, everyone.
See you later. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.